agency and far more traction as far as Hellblade than Forbidden West is that Forbidden West is a tried and true formula, right? It's just dialed up to 11 graphically, but it's a tried and true formula that doesn't do anything different than any other open world game you've played. I enjoy the character, most don't. I enjoy the combat, most don't. I enjoy a lot of aspects of it.
The combat was the fun part about Horizon. It was the fun.
Yes.
The combat was fun.
Yes.
The characters to me weren't. The story was not. Yeah.
And not everybody, and by and large, most people agree with Dutch, and I can understand that, and that's fine. I personally loved the first one. I thought the first one was interesting. I thought the second one was even better. On my 4090 on the PC with the ultra wide, that thing is amazing looking. I've said it on this show before. If you just look at graphics, I would say until Hellblade came out, the definitive best looking game was Forbidden West on a 4090 PC. Hellblade kind of puts that thing to the back burner a little bit, but by and large, I'm with you, Stanley. I'm not saying that we didn't complain about it. It's just it feels to me that the reason why Hellblade should get a bit more attention is that Hellblade is doing something different that we have never seen done before. It's turning video games into cinema, whereas Forbidden West was just dialing up the graphics on a game that you've played many, many times. So we appreciate your super chat. Thank you for being here. Hope you continue to listen. But yes, I kind of disagree with your take on that one.
So I guess one other thing, I was going to jump in there because I think you guys are going to be like kind of alluding to this, but there was an interesting post yesterday from Steven Zatila. I put it in our little group chat there, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it, but I think it really kind of highlights what we're getting at, and in terms of the way Hellblade the discussion is, and I even kind of go back to this in Starfield, and I don't necessarily like. I think it's always hard to have this discussion because you start to have it and people start to go, oh, you're putting on the tinfoil hat and you're saying you're questioning the character of reviewers and calling us biased. And it's not that at all. Like I do think obviously people are human. You're going to have all types within the mix of those giving their feedback. But the one thing he says here, and he was pretty open about this. He's like, my reaction to Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 changed a lot as I played. Early on, I was disappointed. Then I was amused, triggered by an unexpected flashback to my Kotaku Gawker days. Then I became really, really impressed, especially after the credits rolled. Then he went on to say, like, a lot of my reactions were tied to things outside of the game. And then in parentheses, who made it, who funded it, comparisons to its predecessors. And so basically, like, what he kind of admits is
the
that
meta narrative is ruining the actual content. Yes.
And I think and you hear it. And again, I do like the kind of funny cast and like was listening to him. And I do think, Greg was being genuine, but again, you don't recognize, like, again, as human beings, context matters, right? Like everything informs our bias or impressions. Like we all have bias based on like our expectations, and I will say, if I were to throw them a bone, it's like, when Microsoft rolled this out with the 2019 reveal of the Series X, everybody, including myself, was like, oh wow, what's Ninja Theory going to do here? Are they going to go open world? Like there was a lot of that stuff, and I think even up through last year when they showed it at the TGAs, thought that this was probably going to be a bigger thing than what it actually was aiming for. And then as we, moved into this year's Direct, they let us know that basically, hey, this is not a long game. This is really Hellblade, the sequel, right? And that may have gone over a lot of people's heads, because if you weren't watching if you're not super engaged with, Xbox shows.
Wait a minute, OBM. I thought this was the sequel to God of War Ragnarok.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and I do think there is.
I'm very confused.
I think people got it.
Right? They both have axes. Does one come back to you when you throw it?
But I do think there is some of that. Like there when this was revealed in 2019, even people who are fans of the platform were like, "Hey, could this be Microsoft's answer to God of War or whatever?" Like, and I do think that first of all, hopefully in the future, Microsoft puts their studios in a better position and doesn't, give a 4-year, 5-year lead ups with really vague understanding what they're even aiming for, what the scope is, to kind of set them up in a way that maybe they're dealing now with expectations that are unfair. At the end of the day, this is an 80-person studio. 80 people is not a big studio it's not a big team for AAA games in this day and age, especially when working with new technology. This Ninja Theory over the last few years has not just made this game. They've been working with Microsoft Research on research and development, with AI stuff, with systems within Unreal. Like, they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and their sole focus hasn't been spending 7 years on Hellblade. It's been, in fact, it probably spent 3 to 4 years on this game with the 80-person team. A lot of that is also like trying to push the bar forward technically, right, and all that other stuff. Yeah. But again, that people come into this and they're like, why isn't this God of War? Why isn't this a Naughty Dog studio? And it goes back to last year with Starfield. Like, is like, why is this different? Like, why can't I just go? Why isn't this developed? Like, this doesn't feel like Fallout. It's like, no, it's a different game. And sometimes what gets lost in that too is like, what things does this do better? Like, what were they aiming to do differently or better? You could go back to that last year and say, yeah, this is definitely not as good as some of these, Bethesda's older games when it came to exploration and things like that. But it did raise the bar in other areas. And why aren't we like at least like putting that into the context, right? Like it's and a lot of it does come down to, again, who's made this. It doesn't help that just 2 weeks ago they closed the studio and laid off people, or a few studios and laid off people. I think that we can't avoid that anymore. That it is part of all of these studios that are underneath this umbrella do have a different. There is a different way people look at it, and that context does matter. And some are willing to admit it. Some are pretty open about it. Like Greg was pretty open about it. It's like, why didn't they try to go bigger? Like, but again, and I think we just got to call that out.
Well, let's pause for just a moment. Just for a moment, please. Let's pause. Let me catch up on some super chats. We'll get right back to it. Okay. MJ Dark, $5 super chat. He says, shout out to Horizon Forbidden Sleep. Oh yeah, here we go. For now being the best sleep looking game versus best looking. Shout out to Atreus for solving puzzles for me. Yes, sir. I see what you're doing. You're being slanderous. I'll allow it. Welcome, sir. Appreciate you being here.
I would say on that point, a lot of the thing about that is everybody did point out the annoyance in God of War Ragnarok of the trio just
of the puzzles. Yes,
didn't stop him from giving it a 94, but yes.
Yes. They were like, just let us solve it for myself. I can also understand that as well, though, of the voices in Saga doing almost the same. They're just like, look up there. You're like, okay.
Yeah. True. they weren't as blatant, but they did give you assist. They did give you assist. Shout out to the
I wish
great
you could turn
J-Mac.
that off or turn. And I know like the whole point is that she can't turn it off, but like I don't need the hints. Can you turn off the hints and just let them be normally annoying?
J-Mac, member for 4 months, he says, we all know the truth about why games got bad reviews from the other side. Xbox owns it, period. Xbox World Order in full operational. Thank you, sir. We always appreciate your dose of truth on this show. Thank you so much for being here. And then Buck with a $5 super chat. He says, played Hellblade 2 in Game Pass, bought the game after. Fans who love Hellblade 2 need to support it, defend and fight for this game. True art. Sir, I completely agree. I completely agree. I completely agree. In a world where they say play it on Game Pass, and then you're just like, oh, you sure? Buy the game. If you like the game, buy the game.
Always, especially if you're a fan of the medium in general and not just certain types of games. Like I always stick up for creativity in gaming, no matter who's making it. It could be a big studio like a Ninja Theory or a Coalition or a Naughty Dog or something like that. Or it could be smaller indie studios. Like creativity should be championed and should be held in high regard because ultimately,
whether you like it, whether the game is your game or not your game, you can see the artistry on display, and it needs to be respected and championed. Big Mad Mo for member for 4 months again. Thank you so much for supporting us this way. He says, I always thought Hellblade 2 would be like Hellblade 1, but better. I guess that's what exactly what it is. Shout out to the panel. Boot on next season. Oh boy. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And then Stanley Buffington again with a $2 super chat. Point is, it's not a PlayStation or Xbox thing. It's opinion based. Sure. I do agree with you that it is definitely opinion based, but it's kind of.
But if you've seen any reviewer for Horizon Forbidden West rated a 90 in the first, and then Horizon the first one, Horizon give that a 90, and then the next one they give it a 40, you would rightfully say that isn't possible.
Something's up. Something's up.
But that's not possible.
Yes.
Everything that they did in the first is better in the second. Like, whether or not I enjoyed the game, that is irrelevant. The fact that the storytelling was better, the characters were better, the action was better,
and
the
you know what?
The world was bigger, it was prettier, it performed better. Like
we're gonna talk to it. We're gonna talk about the logistics of review in a moment.
Yes,
we will, about those pieces of the puzzle, because as people who care about those things, we'll talk about that. But of course, on this show, we like to make sure that we're even keeled and let all opinions be heard. So, to defend the position of KF and one Greg Miller, it's the man Paris Lily. Welcome, sir.
It's a ring.
You know what's funny? I was purposely like, I'm not going to watch this episode because I already knew what was going to happen.
You knew he'd ask for the link real quick.
And then I just so had, because you're streaming it on Twitter, I just so happened to see it on Twitter. Yes. And I'm literally, and it was like Beetlejuice. I had heard, I was like, okay, let me go see what's going on.
At some point, you know what we do? We put some chum in the water, we throw the line, and then we reel in Mr. Paris.
So here's my perspective on all of this. So I did my own personal review, on my channel, and I think like 20 minutes, whatever, I talked about the game. I talked about what I liked, what I didn't like, but overall, I recommended the game. This is something that you should experience. And when it came to the kind of funny one, I never know what they're gonna say until we do it, right? We purposely don't talk ahead of time about what we like, don't like, or whatever. But I had been talking to Gene Park and some other people during the review process, so I knew Gene was not as high on it as I was. So I knew when those reviews came out, I go, this is going to be polarizing as hell. I knew it. Like, I literally scheduled my review, went to sleep, woke up. I go, yep. Exactly.
You woke up in the morning like, yep, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. And then I saw what Blessing said. So then I was like, ooh, we gonna have a fun conversation on Kind of Funny, because I knew where I stood. I had no idea where Greg was gonna be, but I had a inkling, because he wasn't that high on the first one, because him and I reviewed the first one. We did a replay and did like a re-review. I think even the first one I said an 8, and I think he was a 6.5 on the first one. But I did know, because we got to talk to Don Matthews. We interviewed him prior, and I had asked that question about the combat, because that was kind of my biggest thing coming into it. I was like, I wanted to see some evolution of the combat. And ultimately, while I feel there is improvement from the first one, it didn't go as far as I was hoping it would. Like, I literally had to put the game on hard difficulty to get satisfaction out of the combat. But that's a personal opinion. But going back to what Blessing, when Blessing had tweeted out about the puzzle stuff, I was like, yep, this is going to be a thing, because I thought the puzzles were super easy in there. I didn't like I even said in the review, I don't feel like it didn't need to be Cocoon, but I was hoping to get more variety with the puzzles coming into the sequel. And it felt more like just we're not going to tinker with the gameplay, but we're going to improve the visuals and the audio experience, is the way that I saw Hellblade 2. And that was enough for me. I think it's phenomenal. I think it is something you should experience. I think it's something, even though you shouldn't have to play it multiple times, there again, because people got mad saying I was spoiling stuff and the thing, there's a reason to go play it again. Let's just put it that way. And I think some people said in the chat, and I'll say it here again, because this was Mike's whole pushback against Greg and Blessing. Mm-hmm. Ninja Theory made the game they wanted to make, and you have to respect that from a creative standpoint. And I said it in my personal review, and I know other people have been saying it. Saying God of War, it was never pretending to be God of War. People that walked into this expecting it to be God of War of course you're going to be disappointed. But if you played the first one and knew you were going to get more of the same, that's fine. Think about it. It was an all digital release. It's $50. They were not pushing this as this huge, this is going to be the game of the generation for Xbox. And I think someone said this before I came on. Part of the problem is this was the first game that you saw when in 2019, when they showed off the Series X. So that did build up some expectation for it. But when we interviewed Dom admitted they didn't even have a game in 2019. Yeah. And if you really
all they had was that cutscene, that screen. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you really think about it, they didn't really start making this the game that it is until Unreal 5. Unreal 5 really didn't become a thing that studios were developing on until late 2021? Something like that. So again, I'm not saying that as an excuse. Judge the game for what it is. I think the game is, if you want to put a score on it, for me, it was an 8 out of 10. It's something you want to play. I don't like doing review scores. I obviously do it on Kind of Funny. I'm more of a either recommend to play it or don't recommend it. I recommend to play it. I think this would be worth your $50 to go spend, or obviously you could go play it on Game Pass. Now, to defend Greg and Blessing, which is the reason I came up here, they are allowed to have their opinion. And look, and I can't remember. Can I curse on here? Can I curse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a little bit of that. Go ahead.
It's minor. Myself, Greg, Blessing, not so much Mike, because Mike killed it. We've been catching a lot of shit this week. Me from the extremists, as I like to call them, because they say I like the game. I only like the game because it's Xbox, and which is dumb. Greg and Blessing are getting it because people are upset. Why are, and I'm doing air quotes, the PlayStation guys reviewing an Xbox game that of course are going to be negative about it. But again, you should want differing opinions. That's why I love what we did as a panel, because obviously Mike was even higher on it than I was. And Mike was obviously very passionate when he pushed back on Greg about the fact that, yeah, you're damn right, this is a win for Xbox. It is pushing the visual fidelity in games. It's now set a new standard. Like, I jokingly may or may not have said to someone I know that works at the Coalition, I was like, ooh, the gauntlet's been thrown, sir. What y'all gonna be doing for Gears? So, he just said challenge accepted. And that ends not saying there's a Gears 6 because I don't know. And he didn't say. So, this was making a joke. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you just a little, not a pushback, but a little bit of flavor to speak to what you're discussing here, right? And I said it a little bit before you came on, right? I 100% agree with your take. Everyone has different opinions, and you want different opinions to really get that conversation going and that debate going, right? And I have no qualms about anyone having one feeling about it or another. Like you said, some people have more agency for the combat, some people like the story better, graphics, whatever, right? My only bit of pushback a little bit is some of us in the community who, by one reason or another, are considered the leaders of these community because they've been doing these reviews for so long, because they have an audience, they have a responsibility to this audience. The support the devs conversation comes up a lot, right? It seems that when this game came out, the narrative of who they were purchased by, the company who's sponsoring them, their publishers, outshined the fact that these developers have literally pushed the medium forward. Whether you like this game type or you don't like this game type, if you can't see that this is a new benchmark, either you're blind or you're peddling a narrative. Am I wrong in that, sir?
No, I don't think you're wrong in that. And
that's the smoke for Greg and those conversations.
Can I say something?
No, hold on. Let me get my whole thought out about this, and then you guys can retort me. So the reason I'm even coming up, like what Greg was saying, what people are, it's not out of context, but what people are not getting about what Greg is saying. Greg, it was not looking at it as the game itself. At that point in the conversation, we're talking about Xbox, right? And what does Xbox need as a quote unquote win? Because they've obviously had a string of bad news over the X amount of time. What Mike's point was, even if it is 2 out of the 4 pillars that you were talking about, we should be celebrating that. The game is art. The game is something that I even said, I am glad this game exists.
Absolutely.
And the conversation was turning into what Xbox
meta narrative.
from a business standpoint. Screw the business standpoint of it. Let's talk about the Ninja Theory being an 80-person studio, what they were able to accomplish. The fact that Xbox gave them the time and the resources to be able to create something like this. You may not like it, which is fine, but the fact that a game like this exists and the fact that, like I said, the game is actually an audio experience that is enhanced by the visuals. That's what, and again, if you're coming into this thinking it's God of War, if you're coming into this thinking it was going to be this 20-hour epic action RPG, then you're missing the point of what this game is. And this is not what the first game was. So why would you expect the second game to be that? My only thing was, I was hoping some of the combat and the puzzles, they would have evolved them more than what they were. If you did it too much, now it's not the game that we thought it was going to be. If you didn't do it enough, then again, this is why you see the criticisms of, I wish they could have done something to change it up from what we saw from the first game. So, end of the day, it's a game worth playing. It's a game worth the experience of it. Your mileage is going to vary on it. But I do think, personally, people that have given criticisms, some of them are very valid. And you have to listen to them, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play the game. I had criticisms of it, but I'm still saying you should go play the damn game because it is worth your time. What happens, and this is me getting a little ranty now, this goes beyond just kind of funny. What I've seen this past week is everything wrong with this current online narrative industry, all of that. We waste too much effing time arguing over a number. Everyone sees the number and then they lose their minds. Or you see people that might have an agenda and will skew way into the negative, or you see people that skew way into the positive. So I would rather people listen to what the reviewer has to say instead of looking at a number. Because is this a 10 out of 10? No, it's not, in my opinion. Is it a 4 out of 10? Absolutely not. It's somewhere in that middle. And that's why you should listen to what people are saying. You want games like this to exist. If anything, this was the original vision of what Xbox was trying to push in this generation with Xbox, with Game Pass, and having games that are at the big AAA level all the way down to the AA level, where you can have a studio take a risk and do something different outside of the box. That's what Hellblade 2 is. But not everybody wants that, and that's okay. And I think that's the whole point here. They didn't overcharge you for it, but they also, at the same time, pushed visuals and audio. They set a standard. They set a gold bar for other creators to try and achieve. You have to.
You were going to say something.
Sorry.
Is this for me? Can I?
Or, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So a couple of things, just way back to when OBM was talking about, I think it connects to with what you're saying, Paris. I think a part of the problem with the discourse when we're talking about individual games is that there's so much weight and baggage that comes into it. And so just the example that you were highlighting, Paris, the kind of funny discourse. And by the way, I do not begrudge Greg because, and I keep having to say this, Greg was very open with, I didn't like the first one.
And that's the point.
True.
Yeah.
True.
If you didn't like the first one, cool. I completely empathize with you. It's the other stuff that's weird to me, but let's leave that aside for now. But what I'm saying is, if you go, what I'm a little bit tired of seeing is every time there's an Xbox release, and this is across the board. This is not a dig at anyone, because like Xbox fans and PlayStation fans alike do this stuff, and even neutral people do this stuff. Every time there's an Xbox release, instead of looking at the game for what it is, we're always having the discussion is, I've been waiting so long, or I've been so disappointed by Xbox. This is the one that has to be so good, it makes me feel good about Xbox again. And I feel like we're doing the individual games a disservice if we're not looking at them just for what they are, without adding all of that meta narrative to
letting the meta narrative lead instead of the content. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was the whole point earlier. Because actually, Paris, and I appreciate everything you were saying. The one thing I would disagree with out of everything you mentioned, you said.
Also, shout out to Sumo. Sorry, I see you in the chat, Sumo.
Yeah. And Sumo, I sent you some. He keeps talking about stop this 80 developer. I literally sent him the article that shows it says 80 developers crafted.
John Matthews literally said it in our interview.
Yes,
It's an 80
sent you a screenshot of the article saying 80 developers did it. Unless they're lying, then we're lying.
The credits show a lot of back office people and other things. If you look at the names and the developers and the what you call it, it's 80 people. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry, we got sidetracked.
No, I was going to say, like, because I hear this a lot. There is no standards when it comes to the way that people need to present their scores when it comes to Metacritic. There is no like generally regarded like outline
unless we use the Black Vikings new template.
Right.
We're getting to that, sir. We're getting
Paris.
to that.
I just want to say, if we can get you to use that on Kind of Funny.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay,
I'm shooting my shot. Well, I'm shooting Viking shot for him.
Pause. While I respect and I appreciate the Black Viking making that, because him and I talk all the time, I love that. This is why I think review scores are dumb. Number one, I'm not a fan of them, but they can use that template for them. Not everyone needs that amount of context in a review. Because at the end of the day, it's just an opinion, really.
Right, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Like basically, what most people do in these reviews, and if you look across all the sites and everything, essentially what people do is just they attach a score to feeling, right? Like, hey, I felt like this was a 4 out of 10. I felt like this was a 10 out of 10. And I actually think with a game like this, both of those could be true. Like, if you're just giving a score based on a feeling. I could see the entire gambit on this because this is not a for everybody thing, but it is also something that stands as a one of a kind. So like the whole spectrum of the scores, I could rationalize in a vacuum that every one of them can be legit. If again, depending on the context, right? I think that's what Everborn was alluding to. But so my issue has never really been with the Metacritic. I think we do assign too much value to it. Mm-hmm. I think where the issue comes in, and that's really what we were like kind of leading up to was the meta. It is the fact that like every one of these things as it's coming out, and this is going to continue to happen, I predict, is that it's like, well, is this going to be the thing that saves Xbox? And it's just, it's extremely unfair, I think, to the studios, to the developers, to
the content that's on display.
Even to the gamers, even to the people that just want to enjoy a game and talk about a game. Like, we know when Avowed hits, it's going to be compared to Elder Scrolls. It's going to be compared to, like, how big of a step up was this, now that it's under Microsoft. And, hey, Microsoft, why didn't this turn into Elder Scrolls? This stuff is going to come. And I think that we're so caught up in the console wars, the narratives and the meta that it's kind of ruining the discourse on the actual games. And I think that's where I have more of the issue. It's not the score. Starfield's score is fine. Hellblade's score is fine. I think though the fact that we spent 2 or 3 months talking about, with all the meta, like why didn't this turn out to be the game of the generation and stuff? And some of that it does fall on, Microsoft's people that put them in these. I think they do have to do a better job setting these studios up to not with these four years of hype cycles and people not understanding the context of it. But at the end of the day, I think we also have to be self-aware that so much of the conversation becomes everything but the game when these games come out, and that's where I'm like basically saying it's not just criticizing. It's really more like, hey, like Steven Totili was saying, like being self-aware that these things are impacting the way that I'm enjoying this thing because I'm coming into this and now it's all this other comparisons. It's like you're coming into this typhoon and it's like, and I feel like that's kind of drowning some of the potential for these games to do better and be received better than they really have been. So that's kind of in a nutshell. So I'll turn it back to you, Kate.
So before we continue, and we've been talking around it, and I see you in the chat, good sir. The Longhouse Gaming Podcast is here. I want to add his layer to the conversation because his has also picked up a bit of steam, and it was related to this. So, like, let's talk about that real quick. And Paris, I do want you to expound on what you were saying a little bit when we started this. But so, as a part of the conversation, and myself and the Black Viking have been talking in the background, and I kind of got a good understanding of what he was trying to do there. In addition to the written review that folks get frequently and the YouTube reviews, there's always questions about method. There's always questions about, well, how is it that you can tell me that this is a 5 out of 10 and the other one was a this out of 10? A lot of that has happened, right? So the Black Viking was just sharing with us in the DMs what his team uses for review scoring, his method of attack when they're doing review scores. And I thought it was such a novel idea, right? An additive. I looked at it as a math equation, right? You don't just tell me what the answer is, you tell me how you got to that answer, right? And you can pick apart all the various categories. And he really explained it rather well. I saw it and I thought it was, wow, even though obviously this is a very much a subjective art, right? Which is game criticism, right? A very subjective art. But if you're earnest with your critique, right, and you're earnest with your findings, you should be able to give us piece by piece, in my opinion, how you got to your ultimate score. Oh, well, I thought the music was this. Well, I thought that the combat was that. I thought, because these are the things that go through your mind anyway as you're critiquing and scoring a game. So he put this out there, and I advocated that, hey, man, this is something that more people should use, because ideally that would inoculate some of these meta narrative, oh, well, they're just doing it for agenda's sake conversations from happening, right? You can literally look at it and go, well, this person thought that the combat system wasn't as good as the other one, and they thought that this is, and yes, there's been criticism and there's been debate about whether or not it should be so granular. So it might be a little complicated. Some games don't even reach a lot of these metrics. What's going to happen when the next Mario Kart shows up? Are you going to ding it for the story? Stuff like that. But those are all debates to have. But by and large, in my humble opinion, I thought this is such a novel idea as an addition to the written word and the video content, because if you really don't want to fall into that narrative of, well, you're just peddling an agenda, right? You could literally show your work here as he has, and this is the Longhouse's how they scored Hellblade, right? And then there's just no denying, no question about, hey, man, and as soon as he showed me this, by the way, I was like, special effects? Come on, bro. The special effects was on point, and we had a little joke about that. But this is what I'm talking about, right? You can analyze the thought process from what got him to where he got. And that'd be really, really interesting in inoculating a lot of these, oh, trust me, bro, kind of reviews.
Okay, can I say something regarding this? Really?
Go ahead. Yes.
So the first thing I want to say is that, Paris, you and I have had this conversation many times, because every time a big game comes out, there's always a why does Metacritic exist thing, and we always do that. And you and I both agree, Paris, that we should get rid of scores, because all people do is look at the score and then fight over it, right? Yep. But that is what we believe in principle, right? But practically, no one is going to get rid of their scores, because if you get rid of the scores, people aren't going to argue about it. This is cynical, Everborn. So just
they want your argument,
second, right?
They want your debate.
So the score is going to lead to a discourse, and that discourse will lead to people clicking to go see the things, to see what you said, to either agree with you or vehemently disagree with you, right? That's the window into the thing. And so I say, if you are not willing to get rid of the score because of the purpose it serves in terms of SEO, then you should have some kind of a rubric to it that you can point back to. You can still have all the conversations. You can still have an ultimate score. But now people can know how you got there. But I would argue that will lead to less argument, and therefore they won't do it.
It will not. Harris. It will not. And I know Black Vikings in the chat, good brother, and I appreciate him creating the scale. Here's what's going to happen, because it's already happening within his comment thread. People are not going to nitpick every individual category. Well, why did that one only get a 3 in it? So the argument's never going to stop as far as that goes. As long as you have any kind of numerical or alphabetical ranking in a review, people are always going to fixate on that, and that's where the arguments will start. So, and to your point, of course, it's not going to go away because there's various factors, some you've already outlined. And let's also remember a lot of these development studios, their bonuses are tied to a Metacritic score. So that factors into this as well. So that there's an importance even from the creator side to what the quote unquote number is going to be. I will just say again, I love that he did this. I think this is important. I think it's great for people that want that additional context in a review. And if you're willing to put in the work to actually provide it, that is great. But we already know 90% of the reviews, if not 90% plus of the reviews, will never do this. Yeah. Because it's not it's not because hold on, because it goes back to what Everborn just said. It's about creating, using that number to create a conversation around it, to create engagement.
Yes. Now, I will say this because the Black Viking is not on this air to say it himself. But if you read the mentions on all this conversation, this back and forth, a lot of the pushback is coming from the reviewers themselves. The people who would receive the view reviews are all like, "Hey, this is great. We should have more." But pick your outlet. You know, there are many of them. Pick your outlet. You like it's a who's who of reviewers going.
More work.
Exactly.
That's why.
Receive the reviews. It's the people who are actually doing the reviews that go, "Oh, I have to show my work? Hell no! This is terrible."
Let me say this too. I am lucky enough, fortunate enough, however you want to frame it, that I understand that my quote unquote opinion, number, whatever that I give a review will be scrutinized and people are going to pay attention to it. You know, blah 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 blah. I just will say again, I personally believe, this is my opinion, I would rather not have any kind of rankings, scores, anything. Yes. Just listen to what the people have to say. And I'm going to give you an example. Again, another Xbox game, shocker. So I gave Starfield, when Kind of Funny was doing the 5-point scale, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Because in my mind, 3 out of 5 was a little too harsh. It wasn't a 5 out of 5. So I settled on 4 out of 5. But I gave my reasons why I liked it, and I gave my criticisms of it in that same review. You can go pull the link and watch it yourself right now. Didn't matter. People focused on 4 out of 5. Oh, you're bought out. You're a shill. Why are you saying this? Oh, you didn't score it high enough. It was like it was all over the map. People were upset about a number. And my response every time was, did you actually listen to what I had to say? Crickets every time. That's the problem with review scores. People see a number. Because matter of fact, I'm going to call him out. Sumo is in here right now, who, you know, we aren't necessarily the biggest fans of each other. Okay. Was adamant I was going to give that game a 5 out of 5, but just because it was Xbox. That's the stupid shit that I don't like. That you worry so much about a number versus the actual opinion that is being given. Well, but that's all it comes down to.
Actually, Paris, to that point, and I'll let you go next, Dutch. To that point of they just look at a number, then maybe give them more numbers to look at. A la the Longhouse. I'm just saying. Go ahead, Dutch.
Yeah, I agree as well. For the most part, Paris, and the only thing that I kind of object to in this scenario is just when you see a reviewer that absolutely adored the game on the first one, then give it half.
Oh, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't make.
That's what we want. We want you to show your work at that. Logic, right? We want you to show your work.
Like, well, how did you get to that? Compared, if you absolutely adored the first one to the point where you pretty much put it on as game of the year, and then say this one regressed so significantly, like how is that physically possible? It cannot be, because it progressed in everything that it did in the medium. It progressed in audio, in visual, it progressed in the storytelling, and progressed in the character animations, it progressed in the acting was significantly improved. The sound, in terms of soundtrack, was significantly better over the first one. And that's not just for this game, but for any game where they absolutely adored the first and then go on to slate the second, even though the second is significantly improved over the first, you have to kind of give it. You've got to take a step back from, not biases per se, but take a step back from certain things and say, okay, as an artistic perspective, this is how we weigh up this score, not just based on personal feelings. I think a lot of those things do get kind of left behind. They completely ignore, a lot of reviewers, not all of them, a lot of reviewers completely ignore the artistic perspective and just go specifically on my feeling about this, which is basic. It's okay, but I'd much prefer they kind of weighed things up as an artistic medium, which is what this is as a game. And another one, a little YouTube, but shout out to Acer Game on Daily or Games Arcadia now. His review, he said specifically at the end as well, like, I did not enjoy the game, but I'd be remiss to not give it its credence based on the credits that it did because of what it did manage to do.
That's right. That's right. But this is exactly your point there, Dutch. This is why I was so taken with the Longhouse metric score sheet, because exactly to your point, right? We as people, as the consumers who care so deeply about this game and giving these developers their flowers on what they've done, whether this is my game or not, right? Whether I'm a minority within a minority who says this is the greatest game ever and nobody else agrees, as a person who has the responsibility to be listened to, that does this critique in a more public fashion, and people have the responsibility of people listening to you, right? We need to be able to trust that your opinion on it is on the level, I based on its merits, and not because I feel like Microsoft bought them and because of that, right? That's where we want you to show your work. And shout out to the great Asa for being in the show. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Well, I would throw out the give Black Viking some kudos on this. People do go to the number, right? Like, we like numbers, we like stats. Like, when we talk about when we talk about sports, right? We always go to the stats of players, right? It's always, and there's a lot of stuff that gets lost that you can't account for sometimes unless you do some really advanced analytics where they're picking up the how does a person box out, like what percentages have, like, there's a lot of stuff that gets missed in there. But what I do like about this, though, and just kind of throwing this out there, this isn't the first time that we've had those like subcategories scored. I remember back in the day, I think it was a Game Pro or something used to do that, and they used to say like graphics, fun factor, whatever, and then they'd give a final. They give a final and they say it's not an average, right? Because to like what Kay's point was, some of them, sometimes that stuff isn't really, maybe it is just one or two of those categories that are really driving
not applicable. It's not applicable. It is what it is. Yeah.
But that, I do think that if people are going to immediately go to the score and ignore the words and because we have super short attention spans, why not just give them a little bit more context? Like, the subcategories do like, to me, I can go to that and say like, oh wow, they like, as somebody that, if I'm a gamer that really is gameplay over visuals and all that other stuff, that might be the first thing I take a look at, right? Like, well, how did they, what were the areas of the game that they really, really valued? And I get it. You can go read the whole thing, or you can go watch a whole video, and that's what they want you to do, because that's where you're going to get the engagement. But I think most people work backwards. They go scores, and then maybe they'll work backwards into how you actually got there. And so I do like it. I'm just talking about personal
OBM. I got a solution that helps everybody. It helps SEO. It helps the community. It helps the reviewer. Place the Longhouse metric score sheet at the bottom of the article. You don't like the score, you have to click on it. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. You saw all of the inline ads on the website, and you got the thing right there. And then everybody can get their clicks, as well as people can know what the thinking process behind the score was. The problem is the scores are too arbitrary in either direction. And when you see all of these people just say, I woke up today with a bad mood, I'm going to give this game a 7. Or I love this platform, so I'm just going to give all their games a 10. That doesn't do anybody any good either. At least if you have this, it is something that you can have a more detailed discussion about. Because what we want is fun discussions. And I think this helps that. Sorry, Paris, what were you going to say?
Real quick, Paris, I'll let you in. Real quick, folks in the chat, if you happen to be in chat, thank you guys so much. We have over like 460 people watching over Twitter and on YouTube. If you happen to be on YouTube and you're able to, vote in the poll. The question is the Longhouse scoring method. Your thoughts, your two options. Finally, yes, show your work, or nah, reviewer opinion is enough. Paris, sir,
Yeah, I just want to completely derail the conversation really quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead. That's what we do. Let's
go. I'm going to be in London next week, and I'm going to meet up with Gaz, and we're going to fight in the streets.
Yes,
Asa, I saw Asa in the chat. You come get something to smoke too.
Hey, can we record that? Because I would like to take bets on this fight to see who's going to win.
That's right, indeed. I would really love to see that.
Gus is only like 5'6", so you should be all right.
He's got a Napoleon complex.
But he's fast. You got to be careful, Paris. He's fast.
I know. but yeah, I know it completely derailed. But yeah, I'm be in London next week for some stuff for a few days, and yeah, I'm gonna meet up with Gaz and a couple other people. So trying to put
you and Colt Eastwood. Okay, yeah. Let's keep it moving real quick.
Yeah,
real quick. BT Maverick 707 $5 super chat. He says, "Shout out to Paris." But your co-host Snowbike Mike had one of the greatest rants of the year, helping to his win. Absolutely, absolutely. And then Phoenix Mun Gaming, thank you so much for being here. $5 super chat. He says, finding the hidden folks in that cave takes entirely too long. I like the game, but this level soured my enjoyment. The level needed more combat.
Funny enough, one of my favorite parts of the game because it felt like it transitioned into a horror movie.
Yeah. This is the thing about the opinion scale there, though, is because some people did it outstayed its welcome, other people thoroughly enjoyed the horror aspect of it, and that's a good opinion to have. That's something to weigh up. Okay, all right, this is just too much. I just want this to be done, and others, no, I love this section. That's a good. That's something you can weigh up. 100%.
One other thing I say, in some of I think I heard Iron Lords talk about it, and I think it might have been Attic. I'm not sure. Shout out to Attic. But they were saying there's a scene in where you're lighting torches in the forest and it went on for like an hour. I got through that scene in 15 minutes. You can get lost in there.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't have to. So that
it doesn't tell you what to do. So if you don't know, if you don't instinctively think, you'll just be running in circles.
I want to be clear. I got very lucky, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. It just happens where the second go round, I just ended up getting out of it, but the scene actually doesn't last long. For those who don't know, this is the scene where Senua's father is talking to her.
Spoiling everything. Go ahead. Spoil it.
You just showed video further in the game, but that's neither here nor there. But
spoiler saga. Keep going.
Anyway, you like the torches and stuff, and for me, it didn't last that long, and I like the cave stuff. But that's it. Go ahead.
Max City Entertainment, $2 super chat. He says, now IGN owns them all. We should trust the media. We will talk about that.
I want to know what Paris thinks about that.
Yeah, we will talk about
when
that.
We get there.
The consolidation. Oh boy,
why doesn't it matter what I think?
No. Because I've talked to all of these people about it. You and I have not talked about this yet. I'm just interested in what your take on is on this. And I don't mean this in a cynical way. I want to know what you really think about it.
It's terrible. It's bad for media. You should not have this level. You know what's funny? I've purposely not commented on this because I knew if I did comment on this, you're going to get freaking weirdos. Well, you were okay with Bethesda being consolidated by Xbox, so why are you not okay with the media?
Yes,
so I was like, I just don't even feel like arguing. I'm not going to say anything. But no, it's just terrible. It's not good. IGN should not be controlling all these various media sites. They can say whatever they want as far as they're going to have creative freedom. We're not going to limit their voice. We're not going to blah, 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 blah. But no one's going to believe that, whether it's true or not. You know what I mean?
Isn't it, Paris? It's the same with newspapers. Like, there's so many conglomerates that own so many newspapers and paper articles and things like that worldwide that the voice is pretty much echoed across all of them. It might be written slightly differently, but it's exactly they're on. So when a site like IGN does exactly the same thing in the gaming space, and all gaming and tech media are owned by one conglomerate, again, it kind of dilutes the voice to the point where you think, well, how is this going to be trustworthy? Like, all of these are under the same umbrella. So ultimately, if they want to push a narrative, if they feel like pushing a narrative, they can do. There's nothing any of us can do about it. So the trustworthiness goes out.
Dutch, let's take it even a step further here with that. Right, we've already talked about how while we don't think that scoring should be elevated as it is, it still is related to certain bonuses and things like that. And oh, by the way, what do you call it? Award shows and stuff are all tallied by the reviewers and what they gave it and all of that. And now they all happen to be under one big umbrella, which means that one big umbrella can move the winds in any which way they want, and it won't be merit based necessarily. Or if it is, you can't trust it. Right?
A little bit of pushback on that, though.
Yes.
No, I do hear what you're saying, and I don't like the concept.
Yes.
Like
It's the perception of it. Is my point.
Right.
Yes.
But I do wonder if a lot of that consolidation here is happening because of what's just happening with the traditional media. I think we're worried about. I hear people saying like worried about like you have one source potentially controlling everything, but I would say that they really aren't controlling everything, because if anything, I believe the traditional way of covering things in the media is really being there's a lot of competition from other sides. Like I look at my son who's 15 years old and how he like consumes media and how he gets his opinions on things, and he goes straight to influencers, right? Like he doesn't even know what he doesn't even know what IGN is, which is kind of funny. He's got an Xbox, he plays his
What you
games,
did there. He doesn't know what IGN is, and that's kind of funny. I get that. Continue. Yes.
so yeah, I think we're seeing kind of a changing of the guard with a lot of the way that the influence or the information is being conveyed between the YouTubes, between the TikToks, and all these other different sources that never exist. Like shows like this didn't exist, a few generations ago. So I guess I don't. The thing I'm pushing back on is I'm not really concerned about it. I don't like it, but I'm not concerned. I don't think that there's really outsized control by IGN.
And you know what? When this whole thing came up and they asked me my opinion, I said exactly the same thing. While this situation itself as a consolidation effort is concerning, I'll say exactly the same thing I said when the whole Xbox consolidation conversation happened. Much in that way, when those groups consolidate, it gives room for Devolver Digital to shine. It gives room for others to come up and take certain places. And in that same way, shout out to Seasoned Gaming. Shout out to Xbox Era. Shout out to LogNet, lordsofgaming.net. Once these consolidated...
Shout out to Kind of Funny, right?
Shout out to Kind of Funny, exactly.
It independent, but you have
voice
not
to shine. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a consolidated effort. Maybe now is the time to start digging in the crates and find new sources that have been there independent for a while, and now they get a chance to get more of a front stage. So I completely agree with you on that one.
And it's the same thing that's happening in the gaming industry. You're actually seeing a fragmenting of the industry. Like people talk about the consolidation, and when you're looking at it in certain segments, it's consolidating. But as an overall high level of the industry, like we're seeing things splinter off. We're seeing opportunities. We're seeing democratization. We're seeing a lot of you can be just any Joe Schmo and decide, hey, I'm going to try to build a site in a channel, and you might become the big thing down the road, right? So we're seeing a lot of that stuff. So I just want to keep that into context, because I think the reason why these companies are being consolidated is because, as like paradigm shift, usually the old superpowers or the people that kind of sat at the head of the table, they're losing some of their power, and I think they now have to look for other ways to stay alive, right? And that's just kind of, we're seeing that happening with gaming companies, and I think now you're seeing that with media as well.
Yeah. So I think Evan, please go ahead. Yes, your thoughts.
So in terms of what I think about it, I mean, I'm not too concerned with any sort of narrative shift, because I feel like all these sites kind of sounded like IGN anyway.
This man and his talk.
There we go.
But the other piece of it is we have seen, in the same way that print had to rethink what was happening in the face of the web, I think we're seeing the sort of web 2.0 old guards, having war reserves, and then again, like you said, consolidating to sort of stay relevant and things like that. But the way people are consuming news has changed. It's a little scary in the sense that like we used to have sort of arbiters of news, and we could sort of tangentially trust what they say. And now I think trust in the old guard of the news, and this is a problem across the board, not just games journalism, but journalism writ large, is that when people don't like what you say, they just turn to people who are saying the thing you want to hear. And so when we look at where people are getting their news from, a lot of it is coming from their social feeds. A lot of it is coming from circles and bubbles that they create. A lot of it is coming from YouTube that they follow. And so, you know, the kind of operation that IGN or IGN's parent company runs, and the amount of staff that they have to keep on, is probably not only going to be funded just by IGN's websites alone. And we know that they license out the IGN name across the globe to other ones. Like IGN France is not really IGN, right? They're using the name and paying tribute to the
Africa,
parent company, right?
These others, absolutely, yep.
Right, and so them doing this, you know, I think it sort of is what it is. But the question is, how many people are still going to these things? And another thing to consider, this is just like back office stuff. In terms of the new rules about how you can collect cookies and these things being opt-in instead of opt-out, a lot of revenue from a lot of these sites came from selling the data from those cookies, and that has gone down because they can no longer just collect people's info by default, even though they're still doing that. But just the way that data is obtained and data is paid for by ad brokers is changing, and so the revenue model changes, and then they need more people to.
So real quick on what you're saying there, a little bit meat on the bones on that. Shout out to Apple. That changed because it's a mobile first environment, right? People use phones before they use their laptops and their PCs, and Apple added the opt-in. Do you want to sell my data? Do you want to track me? You say no. Now that dropped revenue like substantially across the board. And then of course Android followed suit. And now you can no longer have that as a factor in your revenue equation anymore. Apple led the way on that one. So that's the reason why.
But there's also I believe there's some laws that I can't point to, but I'll look this up.
Some laws
require them to do it.
That's right. And in the EU and a few other places, they insisted on it. But in the States, it was Apple turning that on that literally changed the equation for us, because there ain't no laws going to be doing that for us right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And so they're gonna sort of have to do these things, and I wouldn't be surprised if it consolidates more, just because that medium and how many people are going through there and the ways to monetize it is changing. So you have to grab more of the pie if your own audience is doing different things now. I would not be surprised if we saw some of these old guard media sites buying YouTube channels at some point in the future, right? So again, to me, it doesn't matter, because again, a lot of these guys sounded the same to me personally. So no big difference there. But you know, these things are going to happen. What I am interested in, though, is I'm going to be slightly slanderous.
Oh, slightly?
All the people who were crying about consolidation and how bad it is, specifically the journalists that were crying about it, have been eerily silent on this.
Well, you know, gag order, man. You cannot bite the hand that feeds, sir. What are you talking about?
You would at least think that they would say it's terrible. You would at least think
what I think is going to happen, and we've already seen some of this happen. Like Kind of Funny is an example of this, but I think you're going to see more and more of it. And on the sports side, we're about to start seeing it, because, like, just for context, anybody that follows NBA, all these television deals. TNT is losing the NBA rights. So inside the NBA, everybody's freaking out about that. But it sounds like what Charles Barkley is going to do is have his own production company, hire Ernie, Kenny, Shaq, and all that, and license out the inside the NBA to NBC or Amazon or whoever it's going to be. I think you're going to see more of that happen. Excuse me. On the gaming side of things, where you're going to see some of the top talent basically go into business for themselves and license out their content. Yeah, and they're going to be independent. They're going to leverage YouTube more. You, again, like I said, you see this already on the sports side, where you're seeing former athletes start their own podcasts, YouTube channels, things like that. We're going to see more of that happen in gaming, whereas you're going to, you know who's the perfect example of this? Because I'll be honest with you, he probably has more influence and reach than even IGN right now, which sounds crazy to think. Skill Up. No, Skill Up.
Okay.
Skill Up. I'm going to go see what Skill Up has to say about a game before I go see what IGN or Eurogamer has to say about a game.
Sure.
Yeah, here's another one.
I'm an ACG all day.
But to your point, Paris, you know, it isn't just like it's happening in sports right now. But in traditional media, we've seen it happen. We've seen Tucker Carlson. We've seen Don Lemon.
Pat McAfee's another one. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So they either like have a falling out with the corporate side, or they said something that people didn't like. Maybe it was the truth. Maybe it wasn't. And then they have to go on their own because they got fired or they just had a disagreement. And then they go on and they start their own brand, and they realize that people have more of a connection with the personality than the overall brand itself.
Yeah.
And so they can monetize that fact.
Shannon Sharp's another one. Shannon and Pat McAfee are two great examples of this. Neither one of them need ESPN, but ESPN needs them. So they basically license out their personalities to the network on a limited basis. But if ESPN was to go away tomorrow, they'll be fine because they already have their established brands independent of them, and they'll continue to do content, the whole thing. So that's where I think stuff is headed, you know, to be able to do more of that stuff, which again, going to this whole thing of consolidation and can you trust the opinions and all that, the individual, you're going to listen to their opinion way more than if they're under the umbrella of a big corporation. If that makes sense.
$10 super chat, bringing some much needed intelligence into this conversation.
I thought I did.
We're all betting 1,000. I appreciate
it.
Adding to the chat as well. He says the rating system for each site can stay what it is. Ultimately, we use Meta and OpenCritic for what they make their productions better. If they want to make their productions better, they can implement something like this scoring system.
I hate Meta and OpenCritic anyway, because it's, especially when you're talking about user reviews, because they're not tied to anything. I think anything to do with user reviews need to be doing what the likes of Steam does, which is provide your actual playtime on that game to prove that you've actually played the game in the first place. In terms of critic scores, I also think they should be required to put on their playtimes, etc., as well, to show how much of the game that they've played. It sounds obfuscated a little bit, but it should be down to that, because again, when we're talking about kind of Hellblade in this instance, where people are saying, "Oh, you can complete the game in 5 hours," I'm like, yeah, but of course you can. If you rush through and miss everything that the game has to offer, then yes, you can absolutely rush through and do it in 5 hours. But that's not what the game is.
What I think Hargeet is saying that I really agree with is, and we're not being specific to the Longhouse method or anything like that. What I think he's saying is some requirement, some rubric needs to be created by these top tier aggregators, and then asked that all those who join it follow that rubric. That way it can all be stable across the board. And the weighting systems need to go away, whether it be this or some other method, whether it's simplified, it doesn't matter. It should be up to the metas and the open critics to say, okay, these are the rules of the road now. If you want to be part of us, these are the rules that we expect you to abide by. And that would then level the playing field a bit more. I think that'd be a bit more useful. And because that doesn't exist, that's why they all do it hodgepodge in their own way. a lot of people want to be part of Meta. A lot of people want to be part of Open, right? They now have that power in that way. They should be setting a standard that they ask that their others follow. That's just all. Or segregate the review numbers from those who don't review. There should be more responsibility at the top level. Go ahead.
I want to add to it as well, Santi, that another problem with Metacritic, OpenCritic at the moment is that you have some sites do 3 out of 5 or 5 at the 5 score, others for 10 score, and it's
100-point scale. Exactly.
3 out of 5 isn't a bad score, but the way it's weighted when it's actually put into a 10 out of 10 kind of remit makes it more out of it like a 65 or a
exactly
70.
The reason why I'm saying they all need to establish a framework that they ask others to follow, because then it's not a 3 out of 5 versus a 100-point scale versus a 10-point scale. If they are now the responsible arbiters of these aggregation sites, are the high-level arbiters who they know budgets and bonuses are tied to, it is now your responsibility to make sure that the information you dole out is even keel and can't be argued with. Obviously, there will always be argument. There will always be people who do that, right? But if you, as OpenCritic or Metacritic, say, look, we see there's a lot of tumult in the situation. From now on, we're all operating under this point scale. We want this, we want that, we want this, we want that. And please, IGN, please, all these other sites, this is what we want. Try to follow it so that we can all move forward. I think that there'd be a lot more traction in this space coming from those high-level aggregators. So I agree with what Hargeet is saying. Paris, you wanted to jump in, sir.
Oh no, I think you're spot on. I didn't have anything to add to that. I was actually responding to the chat. Okay. If you give me a little bit of grace, I'll just say this just so it's on the open. So I'm not leaving Kind of Funny. I'm not leaving Gamertag Radio. I will always be, and it's actually kind of flows into what we're talking about. I want to be a part of those platforms. I love the conversations that we have on there. I love the stuff that we do that's collaborative. But I am going to start doing my own content more. I was doing it prior to joining Kind of Funny, and then I kind of just stopped. And more recently, I've been thinking, well, why don't I just have my own voice on things? Why don't I just, like if you go see the Hellblade 2 review I did, that is me literally talking for 20 minutes straight. But it's my opinion. There's no interruptions. There's no, well, what about this? What about that? This is just my straightforward, coherent thoughts on a subject. And I want to be able to do more of that stuff. And maybe after Summer Game Fest, you might be seeing some stuff that I'm doing. But
is that a scoop? Paris Lilly confirms he's going independent, baby. He always was.
Yeah.
But
I just think it's fun to do. It's just this isn't my day job. This isn't whatever. But it's nice to have an outlet to when I want to have an opinion, just like you do, obviously. But when I want to have an opinion about something, I have a channel. I have a platform to be able to do it.
Yeah. And we've talked in the DMs. You ask, well, why? I'm like, hey, you are a trusted voice. Wherever you happen to be, you are a trusted voice that many people follow. I appreciate that. We should see more from you.
It is crazy to say. I hate talking about myself, but since we're talking about it. So like even my YouTube channel, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said, I was doing it for a while, then I just stopped, and obviously it fell off. People started unsubscribing and all that was fine. But in just the week and a half since I've started talking about it again, I've had like 4,500 people subscribe to the channel, right? And that Xbox thing I had put out talking about that, plus the Hellblade one, combined, they're approaching like 20,000 views. It's peanuts in the grand scheme of things, but nice way to start, I guess, right? So people doing it.
Say, absolutely. And that's why we always appreciate you come and lend your voice to this here show. Thank you so much for being here, as usual. Mr. BT Maverick 707 with a $5 super chat. He says, would love to see the math chart of how much IGN's own weighted reviews along with their newly owned conglomerates affect all of Metacritic now. This is my point, right? This is exactly what I'm saying. The weighting systems and all of that convolute the conversation. Yes, I understand that it makes dollars, and as such, it makes sense, and that's why they're going to keep it the way it is. But for those of us who want purity of vision, which we are Pollyanna in our way, we understand that. We wish that there was a rubric by which all of them would then follow, because then you could get that straight dope and not feel like, oh, someone's got an agenda. That may never.
What I would like to. You know what I'd like to see, Kay, and this is probably a subject for another show because I know we're running long today, but I would like some more discussion on the actual user reviews, because I look at the Steam reviews are, especially for like smaller games, are the most useful thing that I can find on the internet to get an idea of whether something is going to be in my lane or not. I like the fact that you can see like how many hours somebody's played. Now, the thing that they're missing there is like the ability to kind of filter, so I can see, hey, everybody has put in 10 hours. What did they think of this? Right? Like that kind of stuff. I'm hoping that like in the future, whether it's, Microsoft or Steam evolves what they have here, that we can start to see an evolution of that. And maybe you even start to see people kind of start to shine from that standpoint, stand out as far as like most helpful reviewers and things like that. So like to see just a little bit more on that side of things, but that's probably another topic, but to expand, because right now it's the biggest problem I have with the Metacritic and the Open Critic is, from game to game, we're allowing about 50 to 100 people. Oh, Paris took off. Man, okay.
No, he had to run real quick. Thank you so much for being here, Paris.
Hey, to that end, I think because we do this every time there's a big game, let's get out of the Metacritic thing, because we all just don't like it. We harp on it.
We'll probably move on. I would like to see user, because with users you can have 1,000 people inform an opinion rather than the same 50 to 100 people every time. So, but anyways, we'll move on.
J Mac, $5 super chat. He says, "Will there be an on the real moment talking about the Titanfall movie?" And he means Atlas on Netflix. It truly gave him Titanfall feels.
Sir, I tried to watch that movie last night and fell asleep on it. I'm sorry. I'll try.
Oh no, I haven't even watched it yet.
It was certainly a movie.
No, come on, bro. Something else. Okay, I will watch it. I haven't seen it either. But yeah, if it sounds like Titanfall, y'all might have had me with Titanfall. That's fantastic. Pioneer.
It looks like Titanfall. It is not like Titanfall.
Okay.
They took some visual language from it.
Yeah. Pioneer with a $2 super chat. He says Steam reviews on Hellblade 2 is very positive. They're the people speaking. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's at least something you can go by. And I know many PC gamers swear by the Steam review. So there you go. And real quick, I want to say Game Adaption Newscast says, usually right now I'm watching XCast and eating pancakes. I need a new Saturday morning show. Well, sir, may I recommend a show called the Gaming Circle Podcast on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Cheap plug. Thank you for being here. We're here every Saturday morning for you, sir. Hopefully, depending on what time zone you live in. But yes, we're here at 10 a.m. every morning.
Before you continue, on that note, could everybody right now, if you're in the chat and you haven't hit the like button yet, could you do us a favor and hit the like button? Do. And if you are listening on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days, whatever Elon is doing with his money.
How about you hit a like? How about you hit a retweet?
Can you share this out? Can you retweet it? Can you repost? I don't know what it's called. You know what I'm saying? Just share it out. We're having a fun conversation.
Absolutely. And by the way, on that note, now I can see the X chats also in our conversation. So I get it from all avenues. Folks are able to chat with us and we're able to see it. So this is awesome. Between the Twitter and YouTube, we have over 500 people watching. Thank you guys so much. This is awesome. We appreciate the great Saturday morning heading into Saturday afternoon conversation. But we'll touch on a few other things here and then we'll get out of here because it's been an interesting day. So let's do some of these things. Now, I initially wanted to talk a bit about the whole Windows on ARM thing because I know Mr. Everborn Saga is super excited about that. We might table that one for another show because I don't want it to be a 5-hour screed today. So we might table that one for another show. But what has been galvanizing the community, what we've heard a lot from, and I want to talk about that real quick, is Insider Gaming, and by way of Xbox Era, talking about Doom going to be shown off at the showcase in June. And oh, by the way, it's multi-plat. Are we upset about that? Everborn, I'll start with you first. Are you upset?
No. I mean, okay. So, I think it's interesting. I'm not upset about it. Doom has never, ever in its history been an exclusive game, unless it was exclusive to PC.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you're really losing anything by it going everywhere. And there are people that for a long time suspected the next Doom might go everywhere, and that's even before.
So can I give you a little bit of a warrior pushback? And this is just me me keeping the conversation interesting. I'll give you a little bit of warrior pushback, which is Spider-Man was everywhere until it wasn't.
Sure, absolutely. The only other thing that I would add to that is I think that you may not remember this because it's long in the rearview mirror right now. But the FTC is still kind of appealing the Microsoft thing, right? And even though they said case by case, the FTC says you still made games exclusive, and the appeals court actually has not come back with their decision. They argued it last year, and the appeals court still hasn't said we agree with Microsoft or we agree with the FTC or the district court versus the FTC. And so if they side with the FTC, then the FTC is probably going to move forward with their case, their administrative in-house case. And not that they will have success, but it will make more headaches. So I suspect, even though maybe they would do some, let me just finish this point. Let me finish this point. And I know why. I know why. It's not a surprise. I've made that happen.
Okay.
But and again, there is the new strategy or whatever. But the reason I think this isn't a timed exclusive, at least, is because there's the FTC concerns and they haven't gotten a decision back. And if they haven't gotten a decision back, why the hell is the appeals court taking so long? And if they're going to have to go to court, the best way to inoculate themselves is to say, hey,
put it everywhere.
Put the biggest game. It's everywhere that. And I'm not saying that to say this is a big ploy, but I'm saying anything from Bethesda is probably going to be day and date until they do that, and then maybe they'll do timed exclusives. But go ahead, surprise everybody.
Usually, I'm the one in the background doing a little bit of the moving and shaking, and I drop things on y'all out of nowhere. And this time, on my own show, it's been dropped on me, and I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the man with the million, Randall Thor 19. What's going on, sir?
Holy. What's
going on? I'm usually never up at this time, ever. But I was. And I've been texting Everborn, and I was like, oh, I'm watching your show because I'm never up. I'm like literally never up this early on Saturdays. And he's like, you should join. And I'm like, I don't know. Paris is there. You don't need me. You know? And he's like, no, come on. All right, I'll drop by for a few.
Thank you for being
conveniently
here.
After Paris left.
Me and Paris hardly ever show up on this. I've been on XCast twice, and both times I was on XCast, he wasn't there.
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, he's always ducking me.
What if Paris and Rand are the same person?
Same person. We don't know because we never see Rand on camera, so we don't know.
Saw you guys in the same place
no,
at
that's
the same
not
time.
true. I was on camera on TXR, but that channel got deleted. So I suppose, I guess it's true.
Did it get see? Was that you like covering your tracks? You knew you showed up there, so you just deleted the channel?
That wasn't my channel.
You got a lot of juice in the community. You could have made it happen.
I don't have any juice in anything.
So Rand, you being here, we've already had our Hellblade conversation, both the game and the meta ridiculousness around it. I've seen your review, sir. Well, for those who may not,
was it okay? Was there?
It's
my first video I did in 8 months. I was kind of a little rusty.
Hey man, I saw a notification pop up for Randall Thor 19 on a review. I was like, hey now, the man's back.
I gotta get back into making content. Can't let Paris be the only one doing stuff. You know what I mean?
No, it was definitely a good video. It's one of the first ones I went to. So
yeah,
thank you.
So we already know what you think of the game. What are your thoughts on the narrative? And I know you tend to sit back with your popcorn and not necessarily respond to all the back and forth.
Me and Everborn been going back and forth about the discourse of Hellblade 2 reviews. Man, To be expected, I think. This is exactly what I expected to go on with people's opinions about Hellblade, and I was expecting something different, and it was 5 hours, and it's a walking sim. This is exactly how I expected everything to go down. Some people were going to love it. Some people were going to hate it. And it would be this whole huge thing, which it's turned out to be. So
True.
You know, Rand was so on point with this. He sent me a prediction that was within 3 points of what it actually scored. And he's like, that's not my score. That's what I think it's going to score. Because he knew how this was going to go down.
He got the Starfield stuff right, too, beforehand. He's pretty good at this stuff.
yeah, because it's like, you can say, okay, here's what I think of the game, right? And I really like Hellblade, and I played it 2 full times with the well, I don't know if we're doing spoilers, but different narrators. There's different narrators after you beat the game, so I played through it again because I was like, all right, different narrator sounds interesting to me, right? So I was like, let me play through this again. I played through that sucker again. I still really enjoyed it the second time, and I'm not someone who really replays stuff. I kind of beat something and move on. So I was like, all right. And I sort of did half a third playthrough with the other narrator. When you unlock like all the collectibles, you unlock Druth. So I was like, okay, and the dialogue's different. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So I've played this game that is apparently a piece of garbage according to some, like 3 times already almost. I'm
almost there, Rand. I'm on two going into 3 now with Druth.
What'd you think of did you do the one with the companions?
Yes.
What'd you think of that one? There's part of me that kind of liked that. I want to say a little bit more, but it provided a lot of context that I felt was missing from the original playthrough a little bit.
Yes, exactly. That's the benefits to these. I think additionals, they do, both of them provide a little bit additional context that are missing in one playthrough than the other. So you could listen to all 3 narrations, and it would be different context for every time you're playing it, which is really good. That's why I'm enjoying that.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys saw there's a video on X Everborn shared about, like, I did not know you could throw back hatchets and spears at people.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that is one thing. If there is smoke to be given to the game, and that's not real smoke, it's just smoke of the day. These days, every game tells you exactly what it can do. This game does not tell you anything it can do. You'll be wandering around do you know how long I wandered around until I realized you could use sand to turn off some of the torches? I'm like, what the hell? Then eventually, because there's no prompt, nothing. Yes. So eventually you just start hitting buttons, and then this is the game.
For me, it was just intrigue. It's just general intrigue, me. So I'm always inquisitive. I'm like, I wonder what it does if I go up and press the A button again, and it goes sand out. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that moment for me was when in the first chapter, when you're underneath the boat, you're crawling, right? And like you stop, and I'm like, why aren't I moving? What's going on? I sat there for a minute or two. I'm like, what the hell? And then I pressed
ran
A.
into a bug at that point.
And I was like, they want, all right. Like, I thought that was like,
move it. Yeah,
they want you to move it without any sort of prompt, showing up whatsoever. I thought that was.
Hey, man, laugh at all graybeards, okay? We need prompts sometimes. Press X to mourn. You know what I'm saying?
I've took my grays out. There's no chance I'm letting.
I mean, how many people do you think played the game without realizing that you have to dodge roll the red attacks?
Yes,
from enemies, because the game doesn't tell you to do it. Like most people need a handhold of the tutorials. Like I would bet you a lot of them.
These days, yes.
So I think that could be a part of it, because I think a lot of people are saying the combat is simplistic, and it is, but there is layers to it, right? Like and I talked about this earlier. I don't know if you caught this part, but like that whole throwing the hatchet back, it isn't just that. There's a bunch of moves like that where if your focus is charged and you use it like a parry, she'll do special moves that will.
It's like a flash of. If it's like it's a white flash, right? on the
Exactly.
Because I've seen there's a couple enemies that do flash white and then they really attack you fast. I did not know that was like supposed to be the like I press the focus button, you know.
So the idea
what I've
is,
noticed is if you charge your focus, if your focus is charged, you can interrupt anything. Usually you have to wait till they come, you dodge, and it gives you an opening.
but
if your focus
you have
is
to
charged
hit them
out of
first.
nowhere,
If they
you
hit
can
you,
exactly.
you'll
Yes.
lose
Even when
that
they're
thing.
starting, even when they're starting their animations to attack you, if you have a charged focus and you hit the button and you're able to with a heavy attack, you can interrupt anything they're doing and kill them right away, right? Which they don't really explain that to you, but if you figure that out, you're like, oh wow, you don't have to wait. It's not necessarily the song and dance that you're used to. As long as you have a charged focus, you can literally just interrupt everything, kill the person right away, and keep it moving. You know.
But here's the thing: you charge the focus by parrying on the white, the white charges. So the other thing is, there's the focus. A lot of people are saying you can't shield bash, right?
Yes.
Yes, Dark. There's levels to this, but so the thing is, there's no specific kick button anymore. But if you have someone who's guarding or using a shield, you have to use the heavy attack, but it's riskier. Yep. So if you charge the heavy attack and swing, and you do it in a way where they won't hit you because you have to time it properly, that's how you break their shield. It's just not set out into a different button. A lot of people, I think, are playing it and just hitting the quick attack. And the game does allow you to progress if you do that because they want people to move forward. But the combat doesn't have to be that. Like it is.
So Everborn,
a lot more
I would
complex
love
than people
to
are giving
see,
you credit for.
I would love to see what Ninja Theory's layout of the buttons are, because they don't tell you that, right? Well, the button layout, sure, but like the move list, right? Because I'm sure it's pretty extensive, and you get none of that, right? Because all of that stuff that we're discovering, but they have a full mapping of this can be done, this can be done. All the stuff they don't share with you.
Here is why another thing why I think people are thinking that you're just pressing forward the whole time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the way the animation system works, pressing X will do a slash, yes. But the other things that you can do, and even sometimes when you press X, the animation will be and the action will be different depending on the situation you're in. So it's not simply press X to attack, it's press X to do something, press it at the right time, and you'll do something cooler. And so as opposed to what we're used to is this button is heavy attack, that button's light attack. That's all I can do. I have those two things, but the tool set is a lot bigger. It's just based on the skill that you sort of.
I didn't know.
Also, yes, you can run. A lot of people lied to you and told you can't run in battle.
There you go.
Absolutely,
I did not know this.
Shout out to you. You can still shield break and you can still run.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
You don't have to,
this.
and people think that they're just you can only press X at the same time.
Sprint attack, sprint heavy attacks, yeah.
Should also, when people grab you, you have to spam the attack or dodge button depending on what's happening to stop that from happening. And there's a lot of people that are in front of you, especially when the village gets raided, that you can save. If you don't do it in time, there are certain people that will survive and some people that will die. And again, that is not as just all scripted as people want you to believe. Also, since when did scripted cutscenes get bad? Really and truly, like, I don't want to. You know what? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be nice.
Keep going.
No, because I don't want to see anybody show me the next Naughty Dog game that has a 10-minute acting sequence and tell me how this is absolutely beautiful, and then they was over here like, no, it's all scripted.
You know, one of the things I noticed about the discourse surrounding this game, and this is something I was thinking about today, was how one game is perceived versus something else. Like, let's take Hellblade 2, for example. I feel like the people who don't like this game are really vocal on social media and other places being like, this game sucks, right? It has an 81 on Metacritic or like an 82 on OpenCritic, so okay, but like it really seems like the common like sentiment around the game is like it's a disappointment, right? Obviously, I don't feel that way, and I'm sure most of you don't feel this way on the panel, and people in the chat don't feel this way. But like when you listen to some of the journalists out there, or some of the people who have big opinions, like it's presented almost as like the perception of the game is that it failed and it's a big disappointment. And I was thinking back to a game that came out a couple years ago, similar runtime, about 5.5 hours, depending, right? Has roughly a same Metacritic score at an 83, so it's very close. So like, okay, 83, 82, so you're probably like, you're gonna have the same amount of like hundreds and whatever, right? Like, it's the same, but the common perception around that game was that it was amazing and it was a game of the year contender. And if you don't know what game I'm talking about Stray, right? And I was thinking about that, and it's like interesting because the perception around Stray was that it was not necessarily a masterpiece, but that it was like, oh, it was so cute. You play as the cat, and it's so much fun. It's a post-apocalyptic city, and it's not really even. It's like you walk a lot in Stray, right? Like you kind of just walk around and do stuff. But the perception around that game was that this is a triumph. This is like really, really good. And then like the perception around Hellblade is that this is awful. It's and like when you look at the Metacritic scores, they're virtually the same, and the runtime is virtually the same. I guess the only difference really is that one of them is an independent studio and the other is a part of
isn't it
first party conglomerate?
Isn't it apt that it's called Metacritic because it seems that the meta narrative is carrying one versus the other, right?
I thought it was interesting.
Like Rand,
Rand, and I think we were addressing. Oh, yeah, I think we were addressing a lot of that stuff earlier today, and it was just basically, it's not. The issue wasn't like they spend too much time sometimes getting into the score. It's not the score. It's the context. And I would even argue the thing that becomes most damaging, maybe damaging is the wrong word, but I think the thing that does the most disservice to the developers and to these games is the meta commentary that happens not just when the game comes out, but that will continue for weeks and potentially months where, hey, this is by this $3 trillion company, this publisher, this wasn't a big enough win for Xbox. And at the end of the day, it really always, in like we were talking earlier, and I pointed out Stephen Tatilo's tweet from yesterday where he was kind of acknowledging, like when he kind of pulls himself away from all of that, who it's made by, who's funding it, what the expectations are, based on all this other stuff. When you pull that away, like he was able to enjoy the game more. Essentially, it's kind of what it came down to.
So when he took away the Xbox tax.
Yeah, well, when you take away, like it feels like every game was like hitting this storm of like, hey, they got to somehow quell the storm for Microsoft and for Xbox, and it's just. Instead of just taking it for what it is. And I think we see that now. We saw it with Starfield to a different level, obviously, but I think we're going to continue to see it with Avowed. We're going to see it, I think, until Microsoft is just known as a third-party publisher and we're no longer talking about the console wars. I don't see this narrative going away, and I think we just got to get to the point where we expect it, and they're all going to be kind of graded on this curve of, why you're a $3 trillion company's publishing this. Why isn't this competing with Naughty Dog? And that's what.
Why isn't it the end all be all? Right? Why not?
Why isn't it God of War? And we I don't want to like go back and rehash because I know we spent like 2 hours on that earlier, but I think we should just get to the point now where we just acknowledge that is where we are today. It's probably going to be where we're going to be for another year or two at least. Until maybe the industry continues, until people understand that the console war is over or whatever. Like, and maybe that doesn't even end then, but I'd say for at least for the near term, we just know that that's going to be baked into every single conversation around a game that they're publishing. And I do hope in the future though, because I think Microsoft could do their studio some favors. Number one, don't don't start running trailers 4 or 5 years ahead of time. Start showing these games, especially the art house projects, especially your bigger AA games potentially. Start showing these things when you actually know what they're going to be and what they are, so that you can create the proper expectations.
Hey, OBM, I do think they may have learned that lesson. I think what we got with these games being so far out was by necessity, because they had really nothing in the pipeline, and they were at the beginning of a generation, and they had to say, "Trust us, everybody. We got stuff cooking." Right. But I think now when you see stuff, it's because it is closer than it is farther out, and they've got so much. I think that they can do that now. Rand, I want to ask you a question. But before I do that, Dutch, you were saying something.
Yeah, for me, it was just kind of echoing that point again as well, because obviously Rand's come in later in the conversation, but I understand people being maybe disappointed if the story didn't go the way they wanted to, or anything like, or the combat didn't evolve as much as they thought it didn't evolve, although it has, but it just doesn't hold your hand. But what doesn't make sense is what we've spoke about before, is when somebody absolutely adored the first game, where they were 9 out of 10ing it and saying it was game of the year material, and then the second one's a 4 out of 10, and it's
I cried 7 times during the first one, and the second one's like, that's crap. Like,
that doesn't logically that makes no sense. Like,
well, games that make me try to cry are pretentious. Like,
let me catch up on a couple of these super chats, and we'll continue this conversation. Rekuthon Prime $5 super chat. He says, first time listening to the podcast, and I just subscribed. Loving the good points and opinions so far. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for checking us out. We are a small channel that is looking at 530 some odd people watching right now. Damn. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support us. It's really cool between YouTube and DX.com, And of course, my brother, John Wolf, with a $5 super chat. He says, good afternoon, my brothers. Why these reviews scared off of a scorecard? They're acting like corner workers. Wow. Being asked for STD tests. # show your work. Jesus Christ, bro. What are you doing? Thank you for being here and for elevating the slander. Thank you so much. And then finally, we have Dave Ramos with a $5 super chat. He says, enjoying the show with you folks on a Saturday afternoon. Support and hit the like button, folks. I appreciate you, sir.
Let me ask that question, Kay, if I may.
Yes. Please.
To Rand. So, I mean, the first thing is, I think the biggest issue that I'm trying to understand, and Rand, and everybody in here, I don't know how much clips you've shared of this, but I've been doing this thing since yesterday, where I'm not going to argue with you or anybody. I'm just going to show clips of the game.
Yes.
And you tell me if the things that they said make any sense at all.
That's right. Yep.
When I tell you the amount of engagement I got with people just coming there upset because I shared a video clip, like coming there to tell me this is a terrible take. Oh, it's all scripted. Oh, you didn't play any. And all I'm doing is sharing videos.
Oh, that's graphics are good. Graphics are good for a game that's on the rails and has a terrible storyline and bad combat. It better have good graphics. I'm like,
you can't even say you like this thing without people mucking up your mentions.
Yes.
Anyway, aside from that, but that's a difference. I don't know if you've had a similar experience, Rand. But we tried to transition into Doom, and then we got back to people's
we're just
shitty opinions on Hellblade.
Yeah.
But what do you think about Doom potentially being everywhere?
What do I think about Doom potentially being everywhere?
On day one. That's very specific from timed exclusives, which is what I think the community has gotten their head around.
Well, before I say anything about Doom, I just wanted to say that I don't know if any of you guys OBM might have watched it, but there was like a roundtable podcast of people who played Hellblade. And one of the reviewers basically said he played it on remote play on his Amazon Kindle.
Oh, yeah.
And then also played it on his mobile phone at the gym, and he didn't like the game. Like, I wonder why you didn't.
That's like saying, that's like saying I watched Dune 2 on my phone. I don't get it.
I played the game on my 9-inch iPhone in the gym with earbuds in, and I didn't like what they were doing. And whatever. It's like, okay,
What?
you know, like, are we being real here? Like, what's going on? Yeah, there are a lot of crazy stuff going on with Hellblade, but no, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Like, Cold always gets on me for this, but my first playthrough of Hellblade 2, I didn't take a single screenshot or a single video. Because I don't think about that stuff when I'm playing a game. Like, I'm in the moment, and I'm just not... It just doesn't, like, occur to me to, like, record something or take a screenshot. At all. I never do that. I don't know. It's maybe a habit I need to break out of, but, like, I'm, like, so into the thing that I just, like, oh, I should be recording this, or like, Colt's is, like, always just like, oh, I'm in the photo mode, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm just like, he's like, why aren't you doing this? I'm like, I don't know, it never occurs to me to do any of that stuff.
See, this is why I game on PC, because then I can just hit record and then play the game.
Yeah,
and
but sir,
done,
I saw you post a Hellblade photo with the hashtag Xbox Series X, so were you
I did.
on your Xbox?
Actually, I will say for this game, because the graphics are so next level, I wanted to see. So I played it first on the Series S, then on the Series X, and then on the PC. And I have to say, I'm so surprised at how well it holds up on each medium. And the best shots that I got, the most human-looking shots I got, were on the Series X in front of my TV. Like, really, really cool.
Let me ask you this. Again,
I come to it as a speeds and
from
feeds
a console peasant with a 4090. I'm going to ask you this question.
Troglodyte, sir. Troglodyte.
Yeah.
Yes.
What'd you think of the 30 frames on the console?
Absolutely no
Because
difference.
I didn't give it as...
Yes.
I started up, I'm like, this feels excellent. And then I never thought about it ever again. I don't know.
So what I will tell you is, and a lot of folks ask me that because of the technology and all of this, I will tell you after playing it, and I said it before I started playing, I was like, after playing it, I will tell you, after I have played it, expect at least a 40 frames mode, if not a 60 soon.
Oh, there'll be a 60 frames mode down the line.
Because this is not like Dragon's Dogma 2, where the CPU is pegged and the GPU is barely getting used. It's upside down. If you remember the great dealer gaming, he used to expound on that all the time. GPU resources can be scaled, CPU cannot. And this thing is
you
totally
think they just
GPU
didn't
heavy.
have time to implement it? Maybe.
I hear, and please don't at me. I hear that this was right at the line, right when you got it. It was fresh out the oven. They hadn't spent too much time on post release content just yet. So yeah, I think it literally came fresh out the oven and it was clean. Obviously, there's been I haven't heard anybody talk about there being bugs or anything like that.
No.
But yes, I feel like it was right on the wire, and that's why you probably didn't get the extra features and whatnot. So yes, I do seriously expect the Series X at least to get a 60 frames mode at some point, because it is more GPU heavy than anything else, and that can be scaled up and down. I mean, I'm playing it. You've seen it playable on the Steam Deck. You've seen it playable on all the 7840U devices. Like, and obviously you have to take a hit, you have to sacrifice a bit, but you can get to 60 frames on this thing. So there's no reason why the Series X can't get it. But to your point, if you're playing on the Series X, which has far more overhead than that, even their 30 frames is butter, right? It's great. There's no issues. I was playing on the Series S with an X screen. I'm like, yo, this is amazing. I put some shots online. It's a game that you can tell is very well optimized for the hardware. So that's my take.
Makes you wonder what Gear 6 is gonna look and run like. Right?
You know, it's going to be interesting times. It's going to be interesting. People are losing their minds right now about, oh, well, you know, the graphics got to be good because the gameplay is. I wonder how the Chainsaw Massacre would look.
It's like who's the Unreal experts at Xbox?
That's right.
Coalition, right? And
that's right.
Aren't they? I'm sure they helped out on this, and I think they've been helping out with State of Decay, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they're helping out with Unreal or not Unreal, Avowed. They have a bunch of UE5 games in the mix at this point. They do. They do
many.
Have a bunch.
Yeah.
But as for Doom, I think like it's not surprising at all. It's something that has been kind of a how do I say this? It has kind of been conclusion? It's kind of been like an open secret in a way.
Yeah.
that Doom was going to be on PlayStation. I think the thought is that it's going to be day one on PlayStation, which would, are we going to see a PS5 logo at the Xbox showcase? Possible.
Ooh, I know some people would be very upset about that if we see PlayStation.
And I don't think this is going to be the only game that gets announced for PlayStation at the showcase. And I also think it's probably also not the only game that's going to be day one on PlayStation from the showcase.
I hope Idle Sloth is not listening.
One thing I'll say is, while I don't disagree that there won't be day and date games at the showcase, I don't think you're going to see a PlayStation logo. I think you'll just find out about it after the fact, and
maybe in like the Ryan
on
McCaffrey
or a blog post or whatever,
or maybe PlayStation tweets it out afterwards or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could say. Like Doom is a huge franchise; it's always been everywhere. Would Microsoft get a lot of crap for taking it away from PlayStation? Maybe they would. I know Everborn's always saying like, "Who's running the show now? It's the money men." Right, so it's
money
like
needs to be made. That's right.
Is also it's a studio that's already set up to basically put their games everywhere. Like they're very much like a multi-platform developer, where it's like, all right, we're gonna do Xbox, we're gonna do PC, we're gonna do PlayStation, maybe even do Switch 2 or Switch, right? So I don't think this is that much of a surprise. I think some like Xbox's new multi-platform strategy, it's kind of gonna, like, I saw Tim Henderson say something like, hey, any new game reveal at the Xbox showcase, people are just gonna be asking, what about the PS5 version or whatever, right? And that's like, hey, like you went down this path, this is the sort of thing that's gonna happen. People are going to ask these questions about this sort of stuff. So I will say, because there is the other side of this argument of like, well, if you really want Game Pass to grow and you want people to join your ecosystem, then something as huge as Doom should be exclusive, because how else are you going to get people to actually want to play an Xbox and actually want to subscribe to Game Pass if you're just giving them the game on the platforms that they want to play them anyways? You're not going to entice them over to buy your hardware or subscribe to your subscription service, so it's going to make it harder for Game Pass to reach the milestones that you expect it to reach or want it to reach. So there is that. I do think like Doom being everywhere limits its potential growth on Game Pass, but maybe they're not looking at that. They just like, all right, well, it's strictly about cash or strictly about revenue and stuff. But then you also have people say like stuff like, well, Microsoft funds something like Stalker 2 in a way, and Stalker 2 has some exclusivity to it. Why couldn't Doom, since Microsoft owns it and is funding it, also not have some exclusivity to it, right? So it's like something like Stalker 2. So you're saying like it's more important for Stalker 2 to have exclusivity than Doom: The Dark Ages? I don't know. People make those arguments as well about like, well, you get exclusivity on these smaller stuff but not the bigger stuff. I think eventually, I think Xbox's strategy is going. I think it's probably better to look at Xbox's strategy and probably think about like what games won't be on PlayStation than what games will be on PlayStation, because I think it'll be the vast majority of them over time. Whether or not that is something that pisses you off or something that angers you, I mean,
I've said, Rand, that I think it's going to be more of a case of a lot of the Xbox first-party stuff won't be day and date on other consoles, but it will ultimately be like a timed exclusivity thing where it's on Xbox first, probably for a year, and then it'll go to other platforms.
Yeah. I mean, look at Hellblade 2. I know like Gaz has talked about it, and Risk It for the Biscuits talked about it and stuff, and I don't think there's a PS5 version currently in development, but there probably will be at some point. I don't know if
at some point. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I said it to one of my friends when I was playing through Hellblade the first time. I said, "Oh, I think they might be thinking about the PlayStation version now." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Look at the achievements of Hellblade 2. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you notice anything about him? And he's like, no, what? I'm like, okay, well, the one for opening up photo mode, which is where 25 gamer score is bronze. All the beating the chapter ones are silver. And beating the game is gold. And what does PlayStation use for their trophy
bronze, silver,
colors?
gold, and
Bronze,
platinum.
silver, and gold.
Yeah,
So I was like, is that confirmation? No, but I think it's sort of, I mean, you know.
Rand is gonna get this show slothed so hard today.
I'm just
Oh,
saying.
God.
I mean, like the game's out there, people can see the achievement art.
True.
I was just like, wait a minute, that's bronze, silver, gold, and it's also
it's two ways as well, though. It's either that, which is a possibility, or they're eventually reworking the achievement system in some way, shape, or form.
I mean that's also possible. Yeah, I mean Xbox is just
But I also agree that this game will likely go to PlayStation at some point. I
yeah.
do believe that.
And on
then-
the
but then you wonder-
re-review, it
But then you
won't
wonder,
be a
like, why
regression.
couldn't Doom be a 1-year exclusive? Like,
Yeah.
what's the defining factor of like, okay, we're going to bring the game over a year later versus day and date? Like, why couldn't Doom
can I
also?
put a theory out
I would
there?
imagine.
Can I put a theory out there? And I have no prior knowledge at all, but my theory on that is probably because Doom was in the works for a while and they have PlayStation Code. No
And
need
they're set up
to
for it,
stop what
right?
you've started.
Yeah, like 'cause I
You
think
started it.
I think some of Microsoft studios probably don't have the resources to do all the versions at once. Like a Ninja Theory, like a Obsidian. You know, they need to put as much as they can into making the Xbox version work well and the Windows version and the PC version. So I guess the question is, I mean, at what point do we just mentally rip off the Band-Aid that it's just a matter of time, that it's just a matter of them having the resources, and that all this.
Can I answer that, OBM? Because this is
go
the
ahead.
thing that I think frustrates me about this. Like, so for me, I've recently been spearheading the console
Here he goes with the
experience
gaslighter.
gamer movement.
He's on PC, ladies and gentlemen. He's on PC.
So
Stop the BS.
So it doesn't
PC.
really matter to me. I've
PC.
played even I have a Game Pass subscription, but I bought Hellblade, played it on Steam. I didn't get any achievements, right? Doesn't make a difference to me. And when I'm done with that, well, I'm playing Indica right now, also on Steam. But when I'm done with Indica, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to Ghost of Tsushima on PC. That's just where I'm at this point.
Oh, you hear what he
Right?
said? On PC, not console.
With
What-
the
what's
console
that,
experience,
BS?
sir. That's besides the point. That's besides the point. You're derailing my point. sir.
Uh-huh. Sure. Go ahead.
What I think is very unfortunate is that I think it, at the very least, Microsoft or Phil or Sarah or whoever should just say, this is what we're doing, right? I think there is, it negatively impacts whatever they're doing by trying to play this dance of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and leaving it up to Rand to guess what it's going to be, or OBM to guess that it's going to be this thing, or Dutch's interpretation of, well, it might be this timed exclusive, or maybe this one will be day and date, or maybe think about what's not going versus what is going. That to me is, it's not fair to your customers. It's not fair to the people who are even looking at the ecosystem at all. And I think they should just say, this is what it is. And I think the fact that they feel like they don't have to say that, I think that shows what they think about their fans. That's my opinion on it.
Before you finish, how about you just read that super chat real quick, because they're insisting.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. You know how? Wait a minute, Mr. John Wolf. How many launchers do you use?
God, yeah.
Are
Yeah,
you
he is
using
a
the mouse and the
monster.
keyboard? Because I'm using a controller. I'm using a single launcher. I don't see no windows.
John Wolf, 4-month member, says, repeat after me, Everborn. PCMR. Appreciate you being here, John. Thank you.
You know, one of the things I don't like about PCMR
Sure.
is, and I tell everyone this all the time, they have to tell you their PC master race, right? It'll be like I'll be looking at stuff on Twitter sometimes, like playing Hellblade 2, and it's like, all right, cool. On my rig with the 4090 and the 120 frames. It's like nobody cares about your fucking PC rig besides other PC people.
Tell him again, Rand, and that's why
Nobody
everything
cares.
I shared,
Nobody
I
cares
did not say
that
anything.
you're playing Hellblade at 82 frames or Dragon's Dogma at 65 besides other PC people because y'all just get off on it.
Wow, that is the one and only.
And you all get off on it because you spent $4,000 trying to obtain it. Like,
Yeah, you guys.
Hey, stop with the you guys. You got one of the biggest rigs in.
It doesn't matter. I don't make a big stink about it. You guys are always like this many frames and this
Tell
settings
me when I'm
and
telling
whatever.
lies. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I'll go by Slow-Mo's
Rand, you're telling
stream,
the
and
truth.
Slow-Mo's got like all this garbage in his left-hand corner with all these numbers and stuff, and it's like, guys, I'm gonna reload this game up so I can get it to 82 frames, and he's at 79 or whatever. And I'm just like, what is going on?
So that's what Rand was here for, to be on your side there, everyone. Clearly, I can see
No,
it.
because this is the thing. I think more people will go to PC if they get. You see him? Look at him. That's what he thinks. Everybody cares. I think more people will get. Listen. Like Xbox, PCMR has a certain stink to it. It has a certain kind of connotation with it of speeds and feeds, people that do benchmarks more than gaming.
Not even the speeds and feeds. The historical connotation of those last two letters are not nice to me. I wish we would get away from
But
that
you keep saying it. So the thing is this. I want to rebrand it as CEG, Console Experience Gamer.
No,
and it's just about you just game where everything comes. That's it. It's not about it's not about your how many frames you get and what DLLA setting versus quality frame generation. No, you just want to play where you can build to your heart's content to the machine you can afford, and you want an easy experience, and you get access to all the games. That's what it's about for me.
So. Voidlock, $5 super chat. He says, until the majority of gamers push back against the media's bad takes, nothing will change. Look how quickly they delete the bad takes. Yeah, that's true. That
was pretty bad when they made that tweet about. It's like Kai. It was like, oh, the one who started the. It's like that's a weird way to title a tweet.
They did apologize. They did apologize eventually, but still, it's out there, you know.
But it was like, why? What's even the thought process on that?
Exactly, absolutely.
Like you could make that tweet without that section and
that qualifier.
It's like, so what made you think like, oh well, I'm gonna include do you include anything with PewDiePie? Where you're like PewDiePie, the guy who said the art, the N-word on PUBG on the Aaron Grill Bridge or whatever it was. It's like, no, of course you don't. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
Post up, the great post up, $5 super chat. He says, shout out to you, brothers. The growth has been incredible. Have a great show about to hit the road. Okay, I appreciate you coming to check in, showing your support. We appreciate you, brother. Always great to have posts in the community. It's actually been a while. Gotta get you back on the show there, brother. Absolutely. And of course,
I was going to say, with all this PC talk, I think we do got to ask Rand the question. Because Rand, I know you're not a PC gamer, right? Like we know you have a pretty high-end rig, but you don't use it for gaming. Yes. So how are you going to feel when in 2.5 years, Microsoft sells you a Surface gaming device and slaps the Xbox name on it and basically makes you a PC gamer in 2.5 years? How are you going to feel about
by
that?
default? Yeah, how do you feel about that?
We'll see. I mean, one of the reasons
why full Tim Dog.
One of the reasons I did.
God, what are you doing?
one of the reasons I did buy this PC was to future-proof myself in case change your mind down the road.
He's talking a lot of smack, but he's hedging his bets, is what he's saying.
No, I'm just saying it's like, well,
in case Xbox got cute.
I mean, I need a new
in the water.
It's like I need a new PC, right? And that Hellblade 2 review, I did all in 4K. Which I never did any of my videos in 4K because my PC just couldn't do it. That 18-minute 4K video rendered in 6 minutes.
There you go.
So it was like, okay, it still took 45 minutes to upload, but
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, oh, you know what? If I'm going to buy a PC, I'll buy the best that I can get right now. And if I'd ever decide to change my mind in 2 years about like I'm full PC now or whatever the hell,
when they give you the console UI that makes you feel like you're on a console, then you got it already with all your frames and everything else.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'll just move it. I'll just play on PC. But
I think at the end of the day, we're all going to be. I think Xbox gamers, whether they realize it or not, are going to be. They're being transferred. We're basically being transitioned over to PC. Like the next console, and Jez seems like, because I know Everborn and Kay, you both have been talking about this for a few months, but I think Jez is kind of confirming that essentially,
but yes,
essentially, the console is going, like, Microsoft's hardware for Xbox is just going to be a Windows PC. Probably going to be streamlined, right? Probably going to just take out all the stuff you don't need and all that. But it's going to, for all intents and purposes, that's what you're going to be, a PC gamer at that point in time. Even if they, I think, kind of disguise it a little bit. But I don't even know how much they're going to disguise it because he's saying no something
a long time ago. Console has the idea, the actual device of a console has been a marketing term for a while. It used to be an actual device that was necessary in order to get you to where you needed to go. Now it's a marketing term because the Series X, the PS5, all those are PCs that happen to be running bespoke operating systems. They are all PCs in hardware. They could run Windows if they let you run them. It is very much possible. Whereas back in the real console days, you ain't doing none of that on a Nintendo device or on a Sega device. So, now you can definitely do that across the board. It's just they're covering it with the console-ness.
I want to say something to that effect, right?
Sure.
We joke around a lot about CEG, console experience gamer, or whatever. We joke about that. But what I'm talking about in the videos that I share of what I have is me using big picture mode and connecting the PC to the TV and just using it solely with a controller, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't require a whole OS, right? So, and the PC that I'm using has nothing installed on it, so nothing gets in the way. It's solely gaming. But I don't know if what we're going to get from Microsoft, at least in the short term, is going to be a full OS. Because right now, the Xbox kernel itself is a Windows kernel, right? It's just a different shell on top of it, right? And so what I think is going to happen is you're going to get, and vendors are going to just be using vanilla Windows, but the Xbox app itself is going to get its own big picture mode.
Yes, it will be the
full
front end.
And that will basically...
console within the app, basically.
Right. So, but because they're Microsoft and because they own Windows, I think that app is going to have some elevated privileges to force Windows to not get in the way at all.
And eventually on Steam.
We can do right now. Right.
Wait, say that.
And eventually they'll own Steam too, like that rumor.
Oh god,
that came out of nowhere, and
that would get shut down for them fast.
So hold on. Before we derail too far, let me finish these super chats. And I need Slow-Mo to expound on his. He says, "But what if I don't want to give up my sword?"
No, he's talking about the hidden folk thing. That's an inside joke. It's a long story.
Okay. No, I get the hidden folk thing. But there are some other connotations where I could take this that's just a little foul. But
there's a lot of pause in that one. Yeah,
that's right. Now, Jay Rembert, thank you so much. $10 super chat. He says, we've been having this conversation for almost 6 months now. Most Xbox fans don't like this direction, but there's nothing we can do about it. If anything, speak with your wallet. Sir,
you know what?
That's been my mode since day one.
And you know what?
Is also doing that now.
Yes, that's what I did. Right, I did never sat right with me, and it just felt like, why am I sticking around? So I moved over to PC, and now every third-party game that I used to buy on Xbox, I'm buying it on Steam now. Obviously, I'm still going to play the games.
Everyone used to have a tramp stamp of Xbox, and then he felt betrayed and kept moving. I've never had loyalty to any brand ever. I've been multi-platform my entire life. I'm sorry. So none of this.
It's you got to play where you want to play, like where it's like, hey, and I know people always say speak with your wallet, and you should, or vote with your wallet. Usually in the context of like, hey, I don't like microtransactions, so I'm not going to buy microtransactions. The problem with that is that other people are voting with their wallet and they outnumber you, right? So it's like we can all vote with our wallet and be like, whatever, but
but it's not about affecting change. It's about gaming and getting the options you want and keeping it moving.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be an activist gamer. Like, you could just game where you game. You don't like this, go there. There are many options for you.
Well, there's an old Stoic philosophy that says if you want to change the world,
you
change yourself, and you are within the world, and hence the world is changed.
Yes, that's right. To change the world, you change yourself. AKA console experience gamer over here. It is.
Thank you, sir.
But Jay is right, because when I used to have these conversations, so when the rumors were flying about Xbox going multi-platform, they hit in January, but we were hearing rumors about that in like November, December of last year.
Yeah.
I would have these conversations with Everborn, and he's like, I don't want this to happen because it's going to destroy the community, because it's all people are going to talk about on every single show for X amount of months. And look, your prophecy came true, Everborn. What is it, 6 months later almost? And
but the community isn't destroyed, though. We're talking about how
the community is absolutely fractured. 1000% the community is fractured, right? Like, and I don't even think that that's arguable. There's a lot of people that, this is the thing that they're passionate about, and everybody, and I don't begrudge them like, oh, you are weird for being passionate about a video game brand. Like, to me, it's the same thing as being passionate about sports, but we're not going to have that conversation today. But what I am saying
is gone. Paris is gone. You can't use that against them right now.
So, but people, I think people have a right to be upset about it, and I think even in like things that we would be hype about, the community where we would come together about it, we're now arguing about it. Look at what you said. Tom Henderson said, everybody's going to say, when is it coming to PlayStation? Although when I read that, I was like, no, Tom, you're going to be asking when it's coming to PlayStation. But anyway, the thing is, that is still real. That's a real question that people have. And it is just not as fun as it used to be. And it felt like we were building towards something. And now,
they were at what was it? They were at the 5-yard line, and all of a sudden, Amy Hood blew the whistle, and went, "Take the showers."
I think people people give Amy Hood too much smoke. I think Amy Hood gave Phil the money he asked for, and now she just wants the money back.
In the chat, he might get upset at you if you do.
No. I'm defending Amy Hood, right? I'm defending the business side of it, because at the end of the day, right? They did ask for $8 billion for Bethesda and then another $80 billion. So now the piper got to get paid. Like, we have to expect that certain things was going to happen if you ask for that kind of money. And I think it's a little naive on us to think that we wouldn't come here. Not saying that they didn't say things and now they're going back on their word. We should absolutely be upset about that. I'm just saying, like, I don't know that I like this narrative that like Phil is not in the driver's seat. Phil is absolutely in the driver's seat.
Ridiculous. Yes, he's
right. He's helping running a business, right? Like, and at the end of the day, I do think the directives come down to him that, hey, this is your goals, and he's got to figure out how to do it. But I think that he's still pulling the strings to figure out how to hit those goals. And so, if they didn't have the foresight to know that they were going to have to maybe go in this direction. At the end of the day, though, the one thing that stands out to me a lot, though, because looking back at a lot of Satya's comments over the last couple of years, and even during this trial, one of the things that Phil said multiple times was this doesn't change our long-term strategy; it just accelerates it. I have a hypothesis that this was really always going to be the direction they were going to go. They were always going to go towards a virtual Xbox and open things up. And eventually they don't see console as really a growth segment long term.
It's a loss leader. It always has been.
Yeah.
How are you going to keep the loss leader?
Right. And I also, on the flip side of it, though, I agree with what Everborn and others have said, that I do empathize with any of the fans or anybody that doesn't like it. And I would even argue that you could make a case that Microsoft doing what they're doing is probably not even good for the console market in general. So like, even if you're a PlayStation fan, and the reason I bring that up is because I do think that whether we want to admit it or not, whether you're somebody that says, hey, I am above the console war and all this other stuff, the fact that there was always this meta, this competition, it gave both of these companies stakes, right? Every show had a level of intensity or stakes to it, tied to it. Every release that Microsoft or Sony put out was, there was some sort of like, again, stakes tied to it. It was up to them to drive the innovation, whether it was through value, set the new bars within the industry, because that was how you were going to win over this fixed pie, right? You were fighting over this fixed pie. And now that we're kind of moving towards this whole other future, I understand it. I understand it from a business standpoint. I can explain and understand why Microsoft is doing what they're doing. I can even explain why I think, as just a gamer who's just going to game wherever, that it's not going to hurt me. It probably could help me in the long term. But I will say that you are pulling out a lot of the intensity, a lot of what drove the enthusiast on both sides of whether you chose an Xbox or PlayStation. Those enthusiasts, that energy did waterfall down to the casuals, right? Like, even if those casuals only did play Fortnite, it was the enthusiasts that really brought that energy to the console game. So I even wonder if Microsoft doing this is almost taking the air out of the entire console industry altogether. And maybe that's their plan. Right?
You're defining the horseshoe makers. That's what you're defining.
Right.
It's how it's been, I think it's worked. And now they see a new world. They're transitioning, and we're all going, "Come on, man! This is not what you sold us."
But I think it just comes back to, I think they do have an end goal, and I do think they're stringing along their fans. And
of course,
whether people can put their words to it or not, you know when someone's bullshitting you, and it feels offensive. Right.
Well, I think they are in the middle, though. Don't you think that this is probably something they would have rolled out a few years from now, when they could have showed you an open ecosystem where you could have access to Steam and all this other stuff?
Then show us it then, right? Do it next generation, right?
I would.
The idea that they feel like they don't have to say anything because you guys are just going to go along with it anyway, that's, to me, that's wild, and it shows to me anyway. Hey, we got Call of Duty. Leave. We got 400 million monthly active users without
that's right.
you.
We don't need you no more. We don't need you. We are no longer required to dance with the one we brought. So if you want to peace out.
And again, I am fine. What I had to come to, what I appreciate about the Xbox system is ecosystem is the
it goes
ecosystem,
with you where you are.
My library is. Yep. The user interface, which hopefully will get that, and I can transition from big picture mode to Xbox's version of that. Yeah. Hopefully. And that's the thing. But this idea that they're going to play sort of mealy mouth with the what will and what won't, and maybe they don't know, but just say we're not doing exclusives anymore. Like, just
Max City Entertainment with a $2 super chat, agreeing with you, Everborn Saga. He says, rip the bandage already and move on, Xbox. Absolutely, sir. I agree.
I think Xbox should be an OS or an app.
We should also move on and talk about the last related stories, and then we'll get out of here because I don't want it to be 4 hours. And this one is for you there, Mr. Wandering Dutch, since you've been sitting here patiently waiting. I will ask you, sir, and before we even get there, Bunty joining the members. Thank you, Bunty. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.
Boss man.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I want to talk about this, the two related things, and of course, super chats just won't end. The super chats just keep flowing, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Dave Ramos, member for 2 months, says Microsoft has plans. Well, Microsoft has a plan. You can't ask $80 billion with Benjamins unless there's a plan. The plan is just not the console model we grew up to adore. Absolutely. Yeah. That is exactly the deal. We have grown up on the recess talk about, mine's better than yours and all of this. And now they're changing the stakes.
But here, the
know.
only thing I would say to that is 100% true, and we can move on. The only thing is, I will say, you sold a vision to 20-something million people who made the plunge already. And why would anyone else go? Sure. Whatever the number is. People bought it based on certain promises, and now that's changed. And
now
then,
you're changing it all. Yep.
And then, why should anyone buy it if we're saying that's just like, if you're saying, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, that's just for kids, that's just you being nostalgic or console warring, that means you don't care about the console. And if you don't, why should I? Why should Dutch? Bunty, why should Rand? Why should Keasante?
Bunty gifting 5 memberships. Brother, we appreciate you. Not only a member, but he's also spreading the love. We appreciate that. And Z Black Rider going, hey, same energy, baby. We believe in generations. And we gave him smoke for that one too. So yes, absolutely. The same exact energy on that one as well. But before we move forward on this one, before we get out of here, 2 stories that I think are kind of related. One is, hey, it looks like Avowed and Indiana Jones will have previews after the game showcase. And oh, by the way, to add to that, Black Ops seems to have a last gen version. I'll ask you, Dutch, what do you think?
Stupid.
And I say seems. It's right. If it does, it's kind of stupid, no? Because I feel like that's what's holding the next gen stuff back.
Yeah, we know why they're doing it. We know why they're doing it because there's far too much money on the table. Far too much money on the table for them to pass up. But if they actually want to push the medium forward, we need to ditch the last gen consoles and force people onto the next.
Yep, it's time.
It's gonna be tough to do when Fortnite's still being played on Xbox One and PS4.
It's also like GTA and Call of Duty. Yeah, but
it's also like
we'll push it forward.
Why ditch last generation for Call of Duty when you have to make Call of Duty for Switch 2? No.
Right.
So it's like you got to make Switch 2 supposedly like a PS4 Pro power wise, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see why you.
To be fair, you can kind of say the same thing about the Series S, right? Power level wise, you can compare it to a 1X, but it's still using next gen tech, right? You can still say the same thing about the Switch 2 coming out. It will have DLSS, it will have next gen tech, but its power level will be optimized for lesser performance. I get that, right? But yeah, the money is on the table.
You look at it like, okay, so what's more important to Microsoft? This is probably an Activision decision anyways, at the end of the day. They're not really fully integrated anyways. But if you're probably looking at like, is it more beneficial for this to be next gen so they can sell more hardware? Like, because it would sell hardware, right? Oh, yes, I can't get my Call of Duty, so I need to upgrade just like Grand Theft Auto 6 next year.
It'll sell next
year. It would, and Xbox has the market. However, but if your goal is to sell subscriptions, wouldn't you want that on last generation so you can possibly sell more subscriptions to Game Pass? Because essentially, I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into it.
I mean, it's going to happen next year anyway when GTA comes out because everyone's going to do that, and that's next gen only.
Right. So. And maybe they do decide to go Call of Duty, next gen only.
Next time around.
Next summer. Maybe they're like, we'll hold off until like. Make it so, hey, we'll ditch last gen when the new Xbox comes out. So like Xbox can market here's Call of Duty, and like you can either get Xbox Series X or whatever. But
that was Boom's point, which I agree with. Right? If they were to put a benchmark, if they were to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, next gen Call of Duty only, even you PlayStation gamers would then have to think about it. Do I buy a PS5 to get into next gen, or do I buy a Series S?
I want to make a prediction.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we will see PlayStation Call of Duty bundles right alongside Xbox Call of Duty bundles in the stores.
I don't deny that at all because they're trying to make their competitors partners. If you want to move on from that world, you bring them close, you hold them tight.
And
I don't deny that.
And I think PlayStation is going to be able to continue marketing the game.
Nope.
Meaning they'll be able to have commercials and things like that have the PlayStation logo and things like that.
I don't know about all that. That part I'm not sure about.
Yep.
Yeah. At least not in the short term.
I think Phil's in a giving mood. That's what I think.
No, not they've got the game, and that's as much as they will get. I think yes, maybe they can put it on a combo box, but In terms of actually putting it on the TV as a PlayStation game, no.
Yeah, they're not going to get what they used to get. It's not going to be that way.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that the advertising that gets done by Activision, it will have an Xbox and a PlayStation logo on it.
Sure,
not on the
maybe
presentation, not when it's announced. It'll be Xbox.
No, because it'll be announced at the Xbox show. So sure, I'll give you that.
Yeah. But when you're seeing it on the side of a building, you may see a PlayStation and an Xbox logo, which is
I'm not
fine.
saying you may, you will. You'll see both logos.
Okay, yeah. What I'm saying is you won't only see a PlayStation logo.
You really should only see an Xbox logo and a Game Pass logo, and that's it.
Yeah.
Sure.
You should.
You should,
will
but
you?
should and will are two different things.
Really?
It will be at the showcase. It will be at the showcase. It'll just be at the Xbox in the Game Pass logo.
Yeah.
Well, it should be.
I wonder though, is Microsoft even that? Like, how important is it to Microsoft to get people to upgrade right now? I feel like almost where they're at with the Series X and knowing that they're trying to implement
Move on to the next gen.
Yeah, like it almost made like for Microsoft, they probably they might. If I was running Microsoft right now, I would think that I'm secretly hoping GTA gets delayed until I'm talking about my next console, right? Like, or
Everybody hopes that.
the next phase of the next phase of whatever their gaming is going to be, because it feels to me like they have, for this generation, like unofficially moved on. I don't know if that's maybe too strong.
Yes,
they're not marketing it. They're basically. They're not even trying. Like they're not really. It feels like right now they are fully focused on where the next gen and what that's going to look like, and not where we're at. So like spending a lot of calories and resources trying to get people to go from Xbox One to the next thing when you are right around the corner from where you really want them to go if they are going to make a move. Just probably doesn't even make a lot of sense. So to me, it makes sense that they would continue to keep Call of Duty cross-gen for probably a couple more years, at least until.
Well, okay. What about this question? Since it's about Call of Duty, when did they drop support for Warzone on Xbox One?
I don't know. Like that makes them so much.
Are we going to be 5 years into the next Xbox and Call of Duty Warzone is still supported on Xbox One?
Yeah, the thing about that is the original Warzone already works there, so it's not they can do anything technically to change it so it's only next gen, because it already technically is a working game on
unless
that
they
platform.
build a new next
New Warzone would be required.
Fragment the community. Yeah,
They're going to
that's
give us
probably
all
the
that
only
mobile version from the phones.
you got the mobile version going too. That's the other thing to think about. So yeah.
Because remember, all this, as I see it, is our definition of success is different than theirs. Their definition of success is cash, right? The only reason why I see the Switch 2 coming is because they more and more it's becoming more difficult to get ports from third parties. If that wasn't the case, Switch 1 would be with us for 10 more years because they make bank to this very day. And that is Microsoft's definition of success. If they can keep you on the same hardware that they don't have to take a loss leader to buy and then keep giving you more microtransactions, why the hell would they move on from that? Right? There's no reason for them to move. We want them to move on from that because we want the newest, latest, best, shiny
why
stuff.
it took so long for GTA to move on.
Yes, exactly. There's no reason for them to move on. You have to understand within yourself why you want them to move on, because you want to see the Hellblade of it all, new benchmarks, new amazing things. They want to see
on the Hellblade of it all. Is anybody still doubting that Fable's going to look that good?
Oh yeah, they were saying that what they showed CG. Do you believe that after watching Hellblade? For Fable?
Exactly.
Shout out to Fonz.
I would say Fonz. No, you haven't found the cool kids. The cool kid finally showed up. Welcome, Fonz. Welcome, sir.
Fonz is
Hope
here?
you're doing well.
Yeah. The Fonz gaming.
He's Fonz gaming. You know what I'm saying? Come on now. Yes.
Last generation is gonna hold us.
30 other people watching. Thank you.
It just kind of sucks though, because like it's like last gen. The service games, they're all just like, hey, we can't ditch all those people, because I think it was something like half of Sony's monthly active users are on PS4, and I'm pretty sure like half of Xbox's monthly active users or console users are on Xbox, because like Xbox hasn't given anybody a reason to upgrade to the next generation. Like, they've had 3 next-gen games. Redfall was a disaster. Starfield was great in my opinion, and Hellblade 2 was really good. Is that really all of them? Has there really been 3? Am I missing one? Oh, Forza Motorsport was forgotten. They haven't really given people a reason to upgrade at all.
Oh, remember though, Rand, I hear you, but most of those people play the Black Hole games, which also haven't been upgraded. So as long as those Black Hole games stay where they are, there's no reason to...
My point was also that I think Sony has done a better job of providing reasons to upgrade from your PS4 to PS5. There have been more next generation exclusives, and they did it earlier, and they actually have like
Rand as well. Microsoft providing the cloud to allow last gen people to play games that are only on Series X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it keeps you there because you have no reason to go.
Let me add one more piece of context, and I do want to ask another question because we are rounding on the 4-hour mark, and we should be done.
Yeah, this is like an episode of Xbox 2, almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yes. My legs are turning to jelly.
The only piece of context that I would add is, like, we can say that PlayStation has done a better job of convincing people to move over, but they've only, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, they've convinced half of the people to come over, half of the people are still on PS4. Isn't that ratio very similar to what the sales of the Xbox One versus how many the series has sold at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think they're very close in terms of the percentage of people that they've moved over to next gen. And what we're seeing now, and I know the recent numbers, especially in Europe, are really bad, but like comparison wise, but like if you look at big picture wise, it's still like a 2-to-1 kind of thing, or close to 2-to-1. And Xbox has moved half of their base over, and so has PlayStation. So this feels like a continuation of the PS4, Xbox One generation. Somebody saying something.
Kind of, but I would say on PlayStation's front, they're still kind of keeping pretty much in line with, slightly tracking behind, but keeping pretty much in line with the amount of sales it is required to have almost as successful generation as PlayStation 4, almost, if they keep up the same pace. But Xbox, I don't see them getting anywhere close to what they achieved last generation because of their strategy now moving forward. I don't think the Xbox
they're trending down, right? Like the sales are it's a downward trend. So unless something changes, now this brings me to the final question of the day for everybody on the panel. Seeing as how at least currently they're trending down, right? Based on where they were last generation and whenever this generation ends, what do we think the tangible effect of the Call of Duty association with Xbox and ABK titles and Game Pass, whatever, what effect will that have on the brand? And will it be enough to outweigh the negative impact on the brand from the multi-platform strategy?
I will say
everybody. Sorry, everybody.
Dutch, you first. Go ahead. What do you think? Associating it solely with Xbox, Xbox is now Call of Duty. Do you think it changes the equation in any way?
A little bit, but the problem with Microsoft has always been marketing, and as much as they might market a little bit better in the US, the marketing in Europe and the UK has always been horrific. No matter how much they try
your connection's a little bit spotty. Maybe get closer to the mic.
Yeah, is that better?
Oh yeah. Hey, you're sitting on your mic.
Yeah, no, it's the problem to me has always been the marketing in Europe and UK, because it's been terrible. No matter how much they want to try and push the narrative that they're doing better things. Like one of the posts that Xbox put out the other day I found quite hilarious was putting a giant Hellblade thing on the side of the cliffs of Dover. Like, who the hell's going to see that?
It's a picture that they can take. That's
marketing. Like, typifies Xbox's marketing in the UK is that they'll do these grandiose things in places nobody will ever see. Like, what? Who's actually going to? Oh yeah, just sailing past on a rowboat in the in the North Atlantic. Oh yeah, great. Let's see that giant Hellblade thing shining on the cliffs. But no, that's their biggest weakness, has and always will be, is that they're owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft has been notorious for being terrible marketers. that's not because they want to be terrible marketers. It's because they're a software company that has not relied on marketing to get their product sold, i.e. Windows, i.e. Office, i.e.
every other application and stuff they use
has been required to be in the workplace or required to be on productivity. So they don't need to sell it because it's just a requirement. Okay, we need Office for this. We need Windows for
Their
this.
products sell themselves, except
Sell
for
themselves. They're part and parcel of things that you get.
Yep.
When it comes to actual marketing, Microsoft have never been great at marketing. That's exactly the same reason as to why the Windows Phone failed, because it wasn't marketed correctly. It was ahead of its time, but even with it being a great device, it doesn't matter because they've never been great at marketing. And the same's always applied to Xbox. The only reason the likes of Halo sold was because of Bungie. The only reason at the time, when Bungie were in their best, the only reason the likes of Gears sold was because of personalities like Cliffy B. And because of, if it wasn't for him and his attitude and the way he was on the camera and to people, etc., that thing wouldn't have pushed along as well as it did. And the awesome trailer that Cliffy produced with Mad World. But if it wasn't for that and him, that wouldn't have done as well as it did. Marketing-wise, the reason Xbox has never been pushed along as well as it should is because they don't market it correctly. So no matter what, if my Xbox could have the sole rights to, and they do, to Call of Duty, and they could slap it absolutely everywhere and shove it in your face, which is what they should do, that's not what they will do. And that is ultimately the problem. So while they take advantage of the situation, and they could push it along, like Sony do correctly, making you believe it's only on one platform when it isn't, that's not what Xbox do. And they're not as ruthless as that in marketing. They're not as...
Actually, you know what, Dutch? I'll even go one better. Like to what Rand was talking about, they've been able to market next gen better. As even Fonz was saying in the chat, a lot of them are cross-platform games, but they make you believe it's next gen because that's...
Well, I want to add another point, another piece of context to what Dutch is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft traditionally shitty at marketing. Activision traditionally very good at marketing.
Great at marketing.
Is there any impact? This is why I come back to the impact of the association with Call of Duty. Can Activision fix any of their marketing woes?
You would
Let's hope they rub it on them. Rub off
control, but with the redundancies of Microsoft when they took over Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda, etc., did that marketing team last the cull? And is it just the Xbox marketing team now?
No, I can't imagine it just being the Xbox, because I still think Bethesda has their marketing team. So maybe they don't have the whole team, but I would imagine Activision still has their own people.
But again, Xbox notoriously want to do the things their way, don't they? They don't like kind of
True. Well, like you said, we don't even know, because we were discussing this before, what logos are going to appear on what sort of TV ads or billboards. So like you can't even say, like, what is the effect going to be? Because are we going to have TV ads on TV and stuff on YouTube where it's like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and then only has the Xbox and the Game Pass logo? Like typically when someone has the marketing rights for this, that never mentions the other platform ever. Go back to all the Call of Duty marketing before. It never mentions the other platform.
But Rand, the key though is, in those instances, they were always in competition, whereas Microsoft has a vested interest in you buying it either on PlayStation.
Yeah, but I think everybody knows but at this point, everybody knows that. I would look at like marketing for Call of Duty right now isn't so much about Xbox; it's about Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right. So, like to me, you could put whatever you want on there, but one of the things that has to be front and center is Game Pass. Right,
on Game
pretty much has to be there. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, you know. So I don't know. It's too early to say, because me and Everborn had this conversation literally on the phone about this, and I was like, I'm not really sure what the effects will be, because he was like, well, don't you think the Call of Duty gamers will watch it and then be, oh man, Fable looks pretty cool, let me play that? I'm like, dude, I think Call of Duty gamers are just there for Call of Duty. They don't care about anything else.
That's right.
You know,
it's just like Roblox will players will play on a tablet. They don't care where it is. Just like Fortnite players will play it on a Switch. As long as it's there, they'll keep playing it. They don't need to upgrade.
Yeah, and the whole point of like getting the marketing was to get those players who are basically like in love with the franchise and go wherever it goes to buy your hardware, and then you have this huge hardware base, and then sort of like everything flows from that. That's why you want the game, because it sells so many sells so many consoles everywhere. And I'm just, we're what, 2020? We're 4 years into this gen. People have made their decisions about where they want to play. I doubt anybody's switching platforms to play a Call of Duty on Game Pass.
But this wouldn't be a switching platform. This would be adding to their platform, right? This would be, maybe I'll buy a Series S or something to add to my existing platform.
Maybe.
So
it's never been marketed to the general public properly, and that's another issue. Like I can speak to all of my friends who are not core gamers, not like everybody one of us in a bubble who know what Game Pass is.
And remember where he lives. That's unique where he lives.
In the same bubble, because if you listen to this podcast, you have a vested interest in gaming. Just like if you listen to any gaming podcast, you've got more vested interest in gaming than the general public who don't. Now, the general public who don't have a vested interest like we do, but still play games every now and again, so a lot of them still don't know that Xbox own Call of Duty. They don't. Mm-hmm. They never knew that. A lot of them don't know that Game Pass is a thing or Game Pass exists. They don't know that Call of Duty will go into Game Pass. This is the problem that Microsoft has had and always will have, is because they're not marketing the service, which if you're going to push it on multiple platforms anyway, and you want more people on the service to make that service more popular, they need to market that service. And Call of Duty would be a prime example. If you're not going to push the console, then at least push the service. But
so
again,
I think there is some context to that though. So like the first of all, like I was listening to Xbox 2 with Grubb. By the way, it was a good show, this recently. And Grubb said something that I thought was kind of, I don't want to say aha moment, but maybe it should be one for a lot of people. Is basically he said, I'm just going to listen to what they say from now on. Like they keep telling us things and we keep going, oh, that's not true. They're just saying that to appease regulators. Like when Phil's telling you that Call of Duty isn't designed to sell them more Xboxes, I think we should just basically take them at their word. I don't think that Call of Duty is going to be marketed in a way to sell more Xbox devices. I mean, they've been telling us that. They told the regulators that, and I think we might as well just take them at their word with that. I do agree that there's always been a marketing challenge, but it's not just because they don't know how to market or whatever. I really don't even think they allocate the budgets for it. It's something that, because, marketing, you have to think about this. Marketing is expensive. It's one of the biggest expenses that you can have in terms of shipping a game, especially a AAA game. And when you start to, if Microsoft decided, hey, we are going to now lean into traditional marketing, we're going to up our marketing budget like tenfold to push everything, it's going to come out of somewhere else. It might mean another studio gets closed. It might mean other budget cuts elsewhere. So you have to be careful a little bit of what you wish for. And then the other thing I would mention is, I believe when Microsoft kind of went in with this, the Game Pass, being akin to Netflix, and I mentioned this multiple times on podcasts before, but like Satya Nadella was he sat on the board with, it was mentored by Reed Hastings, who co-founded Netflix for a year. He knows how they ran their business. He knows kind of how they eventually, made that flywheel go fast, right? Like he saw them grow that, and they didn't do that through traditional marketing. I believe that he believes the expectation is that eventually it will market itself once you have big games that drive it
in there. Yes,
right. You have to get to that tipping point. Now there is a challenge, and I do wonder, and this kind of I think alludes to like some of the criticisms, is that the one thing Netflix didn't have to deal with that Microsoft Gaming does is some of the issues around the brand, right? There is a lot more headwind, I think, with growing anything that is under the Xbox umbrella over the last 10 years relative to like growing a Netflix, which was an unknown. Every time people learned about it, it was usually something positive and new, right? whereas I think Xbox carries a lot of baggage. So I do wonder, how they overcome that without a big brand push or big marketing push. And I think that maybe that's where the conversation comes in.
Hey man,
but I do.
Just to go facetiously and cynically back to that early conversation, now that all the marketing, all the press is consolidated to one, it's just one bag to deliver. All of a sudden, they start pimping your wares.
Yeah, just deliver one. But I do agree with Grant though. Like for me, I'm less. I've accepted. Mentally, the Band-Aids has been off when it comes to where Microsoft is going with multi-plats and stuff in the future. The thing that I still the thing that I still am concerned about is the future of Game Pass. Like, is that going to are they going to be able to sustain it the way that we know it today, right, in the future? And I think Call of Duty is that big shot that if this doesn't move the needle, then you have to start asking what will, right? Like, is it just topped out? And if that is, I do kind of worry about where they can continue to go in terms of, like, do they start cutting back the value of the service at some point if they can't continue to grow it? So yeah, I do hope that Call of Duty is tied heavily into Game Pass in some way. I don't expect them to pull off the PlayStation. I still expect bundles. I expect the PlayStation logo on the commercials. I don't think they're going to try to go into the old traditional model where you only think it's here. But I could be wrong. But I do hope that Game Pass is part.
One last piece of evidence on this is when you see Minecraft commercials, it has all the logos.
Right. Yeah.
And they're treating I think they're going to
I love how people use Minecraft like as the barometer. When
so did Microsoft.
Their hands are kind of tied with that. Their hands are kind of
but it's been a decade,
years,
right? It has been a decade, right?
It's not by choice, but it's still.
They've made a lot of promises to regulators too, right?
True.
They got contracts with Sony and Nintendo, so I think that it's going to get treated like Minecraft, and whether their hands are tied or not.
They did say it was going to. They themselves keep using Minecraft as, see, this is how we'll treat it. So we have to believe them as they say it.
Yeah, might as well just
Rand, I want your take before we finish up. Let me catch up on 2 super chats and I'll let you have the last word. R&B, $5 super chat. He says this partnership better work both ways, Kay. I've said it before. The only loser is the hardcore fanboy. I want PlayStation games available on Steam for Xbox. What I will say to that is there is no world where Steam kowtows to PlayStation. You're either on Steam or you're not on Steam. In a world where Steam is backloaded into Xbox in any way, shape, or form, if PlayStation goes, well, we don't want our Xbox games on Xbox, they'll go rip it out of Steam altogether. They will not kowtow to any platform. Yep. They are all or nothing. They don't give a about
Gabe Benzenine and nobody.
So if you, PlayStation, want to say, ooh, I don't want my games on Xbox, then remove your games from Steam. Just do it, right? And you know this because as soon as Helldivers 2 became a problem, they were like, hey, everyone get their money back, even without telling PlayStation. They're like, oh, you're going to be a problem for us? Screw you. And they will do that immediately. So the idea that they'll kowtow to, well, it'll be available here but not available there, that'll be hilarious. There's no world I see that happen. So there you go. That's how you get your God of Wars on the Xbox if Xbox is sideloaded. Last super chat, the Great Web Dave with a $2 super chat. He says, legendary panel, Rand, OBM, Dutch, love this show. Yes, this 4-hour show has been amazing.
You've been standing this whole time?
Oh, you're damn right, man. Great man's got a movie. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yes, Rand, you have the last word on this one. Okay.
I want to ask OBM this, and maybe you guys can ask, have an input on it. And I don't know if you guys, because I was setting up my podcast, because we got to do Xbox 2 in an hour, so I get to go for a 4-hour podcast. So I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but one of the things that they've always done for Call of Duty, including the marketing rights, is hardware bundles for the game. We haven't seen Xbox do a lot of bundles with games. I think it's really just Dutch. Is it just Forza Horizon? I think it's Forza Horizon. Yeah. Was it 5? And they didn't do ones for Starfield.
Halo bundle or something?
I don't. Forza and Halo, maybe.
Yeah, so they haven't really done a lot of bundles. Yeah. But this is Call of Duty. So, OBM, do you think this holiday we will see a Call of Duty bundle, or is this stuff still too early because they're not really integrated, and bundles like that take time to really kind of approve and work through and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I think that's going to be the challenge is the timing on it, right? So, it does make too much sense to bundle it. I don't know, that's one that I don't actually have a good answer on, because I think it does come down to timing, and I still see a world where they have bundles on both systems.
They're gonna bundle on both. Interesting.
So it's funny you say that, OBM. I see them bundling literally a standard console of PlayStation with Call of Duty as a bundle, but then on the Xbox side, a custom console.
I don't think.
I think custom console. I don't think they can. I don't.
The only reason I don't say that is they've kind of the whole Starfield skins thing. We had the conversation with the engineering team about that. It was the
folding thing. Yes.
Yeah, that was far less costly for them to do that than it was to completely manufacture the shells for a custom console out scratch. So I think if we do see a custom console of Call of Duty,
it'll just be a skin.
Be the wraparound. It won't be.
Well, I want to add a little bit of context to that, because
my legs can't handle more context, man.
No. This is it. You had that conversation, Dutch. I've had some separate conversations that Kay, you and I have talked about. But there is something to do with the like you said, the cost and the return. And so for them to make a custom variant of the console, it has to sell it in the hundreds of thousands, right?
Yeah.
The one game that could do that in a bundle is Call of Duty.
Two games. Call of Duty,
GTA, and obviously. Yes, but I think I wouldn't rule it out, because I think Call of Duty can sell enough for them to get a return on the expenditure of making that custom variant console.
What if they just use it as a way to do Game Pass bundles, but highlight Call of Duty with those? I mean, I wonder. Again, I still think the future of Xbox for as a platform, when it comes to what the core gamers care about, because it's hard to define Microsoft gaming. They're like everything now. They're like all different segments, but I think the console segment is going to become the Game Pass segment in some time in the future. And I just wonder if you can figure out a way to message Game Pass through Call of Duty, and maybe that's the bundle you do. I don't know. It's just a thought, and otherwise it's hard. I don't have any guesses on that. I haven't heard a damn thing. When Rand asks a question though, like that, it's usually because he knows something.
No,
and so I'm trying to.
You know how Rand be.
I'm just saying.
I'm like, Rand, what's your prediction, Rand?
No,
Rand,
I don't have one, because we don't know how any of this is going to play out. This is new territory, right?
You would kind of hope,
and nobody can even agree on the ads. So
right. You kind of hope that they do, Rand. I mean, if logically it would make sense to try and shift units, but we know that they're not logically trying to shift, which is the problem.
Yeah.
And again,
because Gears has always had a custom variant. It had a custom 1 variant, 1X variant.
I'm gonna just leave Dave Ramos' chat right here and just keep going. Yeah, go ahead.
You would hope it was the same. It had the same on the 360. Actually, they had a Gears 360, a Gears Xbox One S, a Gears Xbox One X. You would hope Gears would have another one. I'm sure they actually had a custom Call of Duty Xbox One or 360.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So you would hope they would to sell units, but again, a point going back to before, they're not trying to shift hardware units anymore. It's if they do, great. If they don't care. It doesn't seem like they care, even if they do internally. It doesn't portray that way.
Yeah, it looks like the subscription model, getting more into the sub, is far more useful than the loss leader that is the console purchase.
Yeah, I will
may
just
be
say,
more focused in that way. Go ahead.
And we can wrap it up on this. The fact that we can't easily answer the marketing question and the bundle question and the custom console
Part
question
of the problem
is wild.
Yep.
But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Gaming Circle podcast for the week.
Dave Ramos with a $2
May
super chat
25th.
saying, I am Asante's legs. Mercy. # outro. Thank you This was, and I knew this was going to be this type of show. This was a barn burner of an episode. Great members, both invited and surprise guests. Fantastic. This has been amazing. I'll start with you, Mr. Dutch. Sir, it's been a minute. We love you here on this show. Where can people keep up with all your ongoings? Hopefully we'll have you back sooner rather than later.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's coming up to showcase season now, isn't it? So we'll be doing all the coverage of every show, and as we usually do. And I'll likely see you on Wilder Gaming for the prediction show.
I'll be there.
Well.
I'll be there. That's right.
Which is going to be awesome, like we do every year, to see what turns up. And I'm going to not pay attention to any of the leaks. I know a lot are fond of. I am not fond. I would like to be surprised. Doom is a kind of a mini one, only because of the name change, but. Even so, I am trying to go in like one of the three wise monkeys there, and not just eyes closed, ears closed. So on that note, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch as usual. It's been an absolute pleasure, especially to jump on with both OBM, Rand, you two fine gentlemen, and Paris, who jumped in earlier on.
Yes, sir.
And yes, other than that, peace out, everyone. Thank you.
And the one and only One Bad Mother, sir. Always great to have you on the show. Tell the people where they can keep up with your ongoings.
Well, find me on Twitter right now at mother_1, MUTHA_ONE. Other than that, I'm only talking about it for like a year. Slowly. I'm finally ready to launch a channel. So awesome. Now I just need to put the content together. I got the logo. I went through all my trainings. I learned how to use video and all the other stuff. But I am going to start putting out things here, hopefully in the next few weeks. I wanted to get something out around the show, but we'll see. But other than that, man, thank you for having me. It was a really good time. I expected it to be. I too have been standing with Kay, so I can't wait to sit down here in a moment.
I'm gonna go to bed after this, man. I'm going to bed.
I feel so much healthier though than sitting the whole time.
Yes,
it's
I stood up for half the show and folded. So
we don't know that. We don't know that.
Hey, listen, if I turn the camera on this whole, I'm gone, because you remember what happened last week. It's just gonna kick me out of the stream.
Oh man, but it was a great time, and we had a lot of fun with the guests, Mr. Dutch, having Paris, finally being out with Paris, and always love being out with Rand. So it was great when I can sneak in and ask Rand questions and see what kind of quote unquote predictions he's going to come up with.
And speaking of that, the man with the million insider takes.
No, it's not. You're the insider, sir. You're the insider. I mean,
thank you for the surprise guesting. This is awesome. We always love having you on the show. I don't invite you much because I know it's mad early and you don't wake up that early. I don't want to make you wake up early for that, but appreciate you being here when you can. That's awesome, man.
I mean, 4-hour show ending at 1 p.m. Was it start at like 10 or 9 in the morning?
I wanted to say before Rand leaves, Rand and I are like Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister. He drinks and he knows things, and I know nothing.
Yeah, whatever, bro.
That's not true.
I have some DMs of yours that beg to differ, but we'll keep it moving. We'll keep it moving real quick. But Rand, please tell the people. Let us know when we can expect more and more videos from you, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah. I mean, the Hellblade 2 video kind of got the juices flowing. We'll see if I can put something out maybe tomorrow or Monday, one of the two.
Excellent.
I don't know. I just need to get everything kind of like going again.
Workflow back in order.
Maybe again. Make a stupid video about something stupid or something. I don't know. Something just to get like everything. Because like in the review videos about Hellblade, I do my content. Everything's off the top of my head. So like for Hellblade, I just had like cinematic. Like I had like a list. There was like cinematic immersion, combat, story, puzzles, and that was the 4 things I wanted to talk about. And then I just like rambled on for 18 minutes, and actually 25 minutes in the video, and then I actually cut 7 minutes out.
See, that tells you, man. You got talent. Most people gotta write it.
We need the Rand cut. We need the extended
unabridged
cut.
Yeah.
Extra.
No, you don't need that. But yeah, it's fun.
You could also do what some other channels do and just switch to Culture Wars. There'll never be anything to run out talking
about.
Stop it.
Oh my God! I talk about why Assassin's Creed Shadows is the worst game ever made, or whatever.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't wanna talk about any of that, but yeah, we got Xbox 2 coming up in an hour. So lucky me, I get to do.
Thank you for not doing it during the show. I appreciate that.
Yeah, supposed to do it yesterday, but we couldn't. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk to you guys. And Dutch, OBM, Asante, Everborn. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens after the showcase on the 9th. It'd be maybe we need to reconvene to talk about things we saw, things we didn't see, what games showed up, what games didn't show up. Is Everwild going to be there after 10 years? Whatever it's been. You know?
I'm going to bet now that I think we will see a new trailer for Everwild.
Oh my God.
That's how you know it's not going to happen, because my bets never pay off. Yes.
That's right.
Will we have hardware announcements? Will Everborn get his announcement of the handheld?
You know what?
Will the Banjo Bros will finally be satiated?
Or will it be the Killer Instinct Bros?
Well, I've changed my desire from a specific handheld to I want the big picture mode for Xbox. I want the
I'm just with the software. That's me. I just want the software.
I'm more interested in that than an actual handheld. Someone can make the handheld. Give me the software.
I have many handhelds. Give me the software.
Let me get
That's
my
right.
library.
That's me.
That's
me. Yep. I've always been on that train. Like, it's great. You're making hardware. Show us the hardware for those who want that. If it's good, I'll buy it. Just give me the software so it makes my current handhelds better. That's all I care for. But yes, Mr. Everborn Saga, sir, let you have the last bite at this apple, sir. Where can people keep up with all your Hellblade 2 spoiler videos and whatnot? Go ahead.
No, listen, I just got tired of the nonsense I was seeing on the timeline. So I just said the best disinfectant is sunlight. So I'm just going to show people the game. So you can say whatever narrative that people are just going to believe without questioning in it. Here's the game. Question that. But other than that, you can find me on Kickstarter very, very soon, because we're going to launch the startup page for Everborn Ariel's Adventure Chapter 2, which is done. I'm working on the Kickstarter page now. I'm trying to decide what the final budget is going to be, and I'm trying to get some spicy, exciting language in there to get people excited without spoiling it. Very difficult. See, when you're used to spoiling games, what I think is a spoiler is not always some people do. So I'm working on the page now. I'm just trying to get it right before I launch the watch page, and then we'll go live sometime after that, after I line up a bunch of interviews in the community. I'm strictly advertising Chapter 2 to the community. I'm not doing any other Instagram stuff. It's going to be YouTube. It's going to be Twitter. I'm going to try to get on every show, tell people about the book and everything, and the universe and the world. But please, I hope you guys support this thing, because it's been a long time coming, and we got so much more happening in that world too. So show us that we didn't do it for no reason.
Like games.
Excellent. Exactly. Like games. Yes. That's right. So
nothing like motivating the game to come out, like showing people care about the world with that comic too. So just comic, and then the game's next.
Shout out to all the amazing people who watch the show. Let's see, at the top level, 793 people that either watched and or between YouTube and Twitter. We appreciate this. Is the highest like engagement we've ever gotten. Shout out to the great Paris Lily, Wandering Dutch, OBM, Rand Althor. Thank you guys so much for being here. You make the show better. Yes, before we even get out of here, let me turn off the poll, which had what is it, almost 200 and change people voting, and by and large they all say, with 85% saying yes to 15% saying no, 85% say yes, please show your work, hashtag using of the Longhouse method. So there you go. Maybe this spurs on some more indie creators to go out there, use that Longhouse method. I'm advocating for it. I might even use it myself. Why the heck not? right? So we can show our work. And then 15% say, nah, the viewer opinion is enough. So thank you guys so much for letting your opinions heard. We appreciate all the folks who came out, all the super chats. It's been quite the show. My legs are turning to jelly, so that's the end of this podcast. If there are more shows to be watched, please go check them out. Let them know we sent you. It's been a great show. Don't forget to check out the Xbox 2 coming up very soon. I'll be doing that while doing the timestamps. Until next week, peace.
Thanks for being on it.